Chapter 777. Sir, could it be that you want to collect all the patterns on the 9 divine cauldrons and obtain the legendary ancient secret technique? The centipede spirit frowned and asked Yi Fan. It had lived for more than 1,000 years, so of course it knew all kinds of ancient secret. This included the legend of the 9 cauldrons. That's right, that's what I was thinking, Yi Fan said, and told the centipede spirit about his encounter. No wonder you became the Demon King. So that's how it is. The centipede spirit listened to Yi Fan's story and nodded. What happened at the demon-slaying conference had spread throughout the 3 realms. Therefore, although it lived in seclusion on this mountain, it still heard about it. How many divine cauldrons have you found? The centipede spirit looked up and asked Yi Fan. I have 5 of the 9 cauldrons patterns. Yi Fan told it the truth. The centipede spirit nodded. It was not surprised by Yi Fan's words. With Yi Fan's current cultivation, it was not difficult for him to obtain 5 of the divine cauldrons patterns. The difficult part was how to find the remaining divine cauldrons. Brother, you have lived in this world for a long time. Do you have any information about the divine cauldrons? Yi Fan saw that the centipede spirit did not look surprised. He guessed that it might know something about the 9 cauldrons, so he asked. He didn't expect that his casual question would actually yield a valuable clue. Now that you've asked, I'm reminded of a place. The centipede spirit lowered its head and thought. It muttered to itself, that place might really have a divine cauldron. Where is it? Yi Fan's eyes lit up as he asked the centipede spirit. More than 80 years ago, I was invited by a good friend to his cave abode in the western region as a guest. The centipede spirit looked up at Yi Fan and said, At the banquet, I heard it say something. What is it? Yi Fan asked. That friend of mine is a scorpion that has cultivated for more than 800 years. He likes to transform into a handsome young man and travel around, said the spider spirit. After he drank, he told me that he found a barrier on top of a volcano near the western region. It was very powerful. Even though it had cultivated for more than 800 years, it couldn't move the barrier at all. Is there such a thing? Yi Fan was delighted to hear that. A powerful barrier was found within the volcano. It was most likely where the divine cauldron was located. My friend has 2 hobbies. Apart from traveling, he also likes to hunt for all kinds of rare treasures, the centipede spirit continued. He thinks that since the barrier is so strong, there must be a secret treasure hidden inside. Therefore, he specially invited me over for a drink. Firstly, it has been many years since we last met, and secondly, because I was full of spirit energy and my cultivation was overbearing, he wanted me to help him open the barrier and obtain the treasure inside. You attacked? Yi Fan asked the centipede spirit. It's my duty to help a good friend. The centipede spirit nodded. What was the result? Yi Fan continued to ask. That barrier is too powerful. I've never seen such a powerful barrier before. The centipede spirit shook its head and said, Even with my 1,000 years of cultivation and my friend's 800 years of cultivation, the 2 of us couldn't shake the barrier at all. Other than being strong, what else is special about that barrier? Yi Fan's eyes lit up as he asked again. That barrier is like an abyss. Our combined attack was completely absorbed by the barrier like a clay ox entering the sea. Then, it instantly bounced back the same way it came. The strength of the barrier is almost twice as strong as our combined attack. The centipede spirit's expression changed as it said this. If the 2 of us hadn't run fast enough, we would have been engulfed by the volcanic lava and buried in the volcano. Although this matter had happened more than 80 years ago, the centipede spirit still had lingering fear when it thought of that scene. It's the divine cauldron, it's the divine cauldron, Yi Fan excitedly muttered to himself. When he had attacked the divine cauldron barrier at the bottom of the Sisui River, he had encountered the situation that the centipede spirit had described. All the power he had released had been instantly rebounded by the barrier. At that time, he had not been bedeviled and did not have the power of the heavenly demon. He had also not cultivated the mysterious sky secret technique to the third realm, Phoenix dance of the 9 heavens. Naturally, he could not break the barrier. Is the thing inside the barrier really the ancient divine cauldron? The centipede spirit asked when it saw Yi Fan's joyful expression. I won't hide it from you. The first time I tried to break the barrier of the divine cauldron, I encountered the same situation as you did. Yi Fan smiled and said to the centipede spirit, I'm sure that the thing inside the barrier is definitely the divine cauldron. No wonder, no wonder. The centipede spirit nodded. It was said that the barrier of the ancient divine cauldron could only be broken by the power of an immortal. It seemed that it was true. I wonder where that volcano is in the western region? Does it have a name? Yi Fan asked the centipede spirit. The name of that volcano is very long. I don't remember what it's called anymore. The centipede spirit replied, I only remember that the area within a radius of 10 miles around the volcano was covered in dry rocks. Not a single blade of grass grew. Yi Fan frowned when he heard that. Most volcanoes were like that. It was impossible to find their exact location with just this clue. We've been talking for so long, but I still don't know your name. Yi Fan asked the centipede spirit. The centipede spirit smiled when it heard that. I'm a centipede, so I took the surname Wu. My name is Gong. Centipede? Akatsuki asked with a frown. Wu is Tian Wu, and Gong is young master's Gong. The centipede spirit laughed. Yi Fan smiled brightly after hearing that. Brother Wu really has a character. He actually thought of such a name. The centipede spirit smiled but didn't say anything. I wonder if Brother Wu can come with me to the western region and help me find that volcano? Yi Fan asked. It was actually very easy to find that volcano. All he had to do was bring him along. Mister, you don't know. Ever since I failed to transcend my tribulation, I lost all my spirit chi. The yin and yang in my body are in chaos, and my 5 elements lack metal, the centipede spirit said to Yi Fan. Although I've accumulated some spirit chi over the past few decades, I still can't leave the metal chi of the transient light cave cauldron. In addition, I've already adapted to the climate here. If I go to the scorching western region, the yin and yang chi in my body will be reversed. Therefore, it's not that I don't want to help. I really can't leave. After hearing that, Yi Fan nodded thoughtfully. The centipede spirit was right. He really couldn't leave the transient light cave cauldron. What should he do? Yi Fan frowned. Mister, you don't have to worry. I have a way. The centipede spirit saw Yi Fan's troubles and said, What way? Yi Fan raised his head and asked. Although I can't go there, I can ask my friend to take you there, the centipede spirit said with a smile. I'll use the 1,000-mile sound transmission technique to inform him and ask him to come and receive you, mister. After hearing that, Yi Fan secretly scolded himself for being foolish. The centipede spirit wasn't the only one who knew the location of the volcano. The scorpion spirit also knew. That's a good idea. But how do I find your friend? Yi Fan asked the centipede spirit. That's easy. The centipede spirit said with a smile. As long as Mr. rides a cloud to the western region, my friend will naturally find Mr.'s location. Yi Fan was shocked. Brother Wu's friend has such a method? Ha ha ha. Mister, you're thinking too much. The centipede spirit waved his hand and said with a smile, My friend's methods are ordinary, but he's extremely sensitive to the auspicious aura of treasures. That can't be helped. He likes those rare treasures. The aura of treasures on Mr.'s body surges to the sky and is surrounded by auspicious aura. Not to mention anything else, just based on Mr.'s treasured robe, that fellow will be able to sense Mr.'s location. So that's how it is. Yi Fan was enlightened. As the saying goes, every profession has its own specialization. The scorpion spirit actually had such an ability. My friend's surname is Xie, and his name is Zijing. The centipede spirit said with a smile, Mister, when you see him, you can just call him Old Xie. Scorpion spirit, Xie Zijing. Akatsuki said with a smile, the two of you have come up with such interesting names. Names are just code names, the centipede spirit said with a smile. Brother Wu, since that's the case, I won't stay any longer. Yi Fan cupped his hands and said to the centipede spirit, after I rescue my beloved wife, I'll definitely come and visit you, Brother Wu. Then I'll be waiting for Mr. here. The centipede spirit said with a smile. Brother Wu, goodbye. Yi Fan said goodbye to the centipede spirit. Mister, take care. The centipede spirit returned the courtesy. Yi Fan nodded and gently waved his sleeve at his feet. Whoosh, a large group of auspicious clouds quickly gathered under their feet, carrying their bodies out of the pavilion and into the sky. At that moment, Yamada Shingo, whose face was covered with a veil and whose clothes were as white as snow, was carrying Matsumoto Takeyoshi, who was wearing a gray robe and flying in the sky above the East Sea. They were riding the wind. Matsumoto Takeyoshi's face was covered with a gray scarf, and only his eyes were exposed. Although Yamada Shingo did not know the cloud riding technique, the speed of riding the wind was not any slower than the auspicious clouds. Amidst the sea breeze, the two of them flew rapidly toward the south of the East Sea. In less than half an hour, the two of them had flown hundreds of miles. Mr. Matsumoto, we're here. The man in white looked at a small green island on the sea below and turned his head to speak to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Matsumoto Takeyoshi, who was lying on the back of the man in white, grunted in acknowledgement. Hold on tight, we're going down. As the man in white spoke, he activated his movement skill and slowly descended toward the small island. After a while, the two of them landed on the small island. The small island was not big, and it was only about 10 acres in size. The island was covered with lush trees and bushes. As far as the eye could see, it was a beautiful place with beautiful scenery. Swoosh, 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 as soon as the two of them landed on the ground, more than 10 shadows appeared from the trees, rocks, ground, and sea around them. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 ninjas with veils covering their faces and swords in their hands surrounded the two of them. These ninjas were wearing similar clothes, but their colors were different. They were divided into green, red, white, black, and yellow. 5 elements ninjas? The man in white raised his eyebrows and looked at the ninjas with his eagle eyes. Who are you? The leader of the ninjas, who was dressed in green, asked in fluent Mandarin. Mr. Matsumoto is here. Don't be rude. The man in white said coldly. Matsumoto Takeyoshi slowly removed the scarf that was wrapped around his head. Swoosh. The moment Matsumoto Takeyoshi revealed his face, all the ninjas immediately raised their swords and knelt on one knee. Greetings, my lord. Everyone said in Japanese and lowered their heads. Chapter 778. Thank you, my lord. More than a dozen 5 elements ninjas said and stood up in unison. Where is Mr. Sato? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked the ninjas. My lord, Mr. Sato is forging a sword in the cave. The leader of the ninjas said respectfully to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Take me to see him. Matsumoto Takeyoshi said. Yes. The ninja nodded heavily and stretched out his hand. My lord, please follow me. The ninja said and led the way. Matsumoto Takeyoshi and the man in white followed closely behind. The rest of the 5 elements ninjas saluted to Matsumoto Takeyoshi and instantly returned to their respective positions. Walking on the uneven gravel road, the 3 of them arrived at the cliff of the island. The gravel road had come to an end. The ninja stretched out his hand and gently turned a protruding bluestone on the cliff. Rumble with a loud rumbling sound, the cliff instantly split to the left and right, revealing a 3 feet wide stone door. As soon as the stone door opened, a terrifying heat wave hit their faces. My lord, please. The ninja stretched out his hand and invited Matsumoto Takeyoshi to enter. Matsumoto Takeyoshi stepped in and the man in white followed closely behind. Rumble, the ninja closed the stone door from the outside and immediately disappeared with a movement skill. The Five Elements Ninja's mission was to secretly protect the safety of this island and prevent outsiders from setting foot on this island. As for other things, they never cared about them. After entering the cave, Matsumoto Takeyoshi stopped and looked around at the cave in front of him. This cave was extremely wide, covering an area of more than 10 acres and was 7 or 8 feet high. It looked very grand. The surrounding stone walls were filled with pine oil torches, illuminating the entire cave as bright as day. A large number of materials were neatly arranged in the 4 corners of the cave. There were pitch-black charcoal, glittering meteoric iron, a large number of forging tools, a huge water reservoir, and all kinds of food and clothing. Everything was available. In the center of the cave, 13 huge furnaces were lined up in a row, looking quite imposing. The furnace was more than 3 zhang tall and more than 1 zhang wide. It had a big belly and a round body, and 3 legs supporting the ground. It looked quite ancient. On the ground below each furnace, there was a round hole more than 3 meters deep. Inside the hole, there was a large amount of fiery red charcoal. The 13 deep holes were connected to each other for ventilation and fire. The charcoal flames burned fiercely, crazily licking the huge body of the furnace. It was a spectacular sight. Hundreds of bare-chested, burly men were carrying charcoal in carts and dumping the charcoal into the flames below the furnace. They were moving back and forth in an orderly manner. Everything in the cave was distorted by the blazing heat. In the twisted air, a topless old man stood there quietly with an iron rod in his hand. His eyes flickered as he stared at the flames below the 13 furnaces. The old man had a medium build and a thin face. His white hair draped neatly behind his back. Although he looked like he was in his 60s, the muscles on his body were extremely strong. He was not inferior to those muscular men at all. The blazing fire illuminated the old man's muscular body, making him look like a bronze statue. This man was none other than the Japanese swordsman, Kazuken Sato. Not far behind him, there were 2 people standing at the air vent. The tall, muscular man with a scar on his face and a huge sword in his hand was Sasaki. The one wearing a black helmet, black armor, and a ghost mask was Akichi Miyamoto. Their mission was to stay close to Kazuken Sato and ensure his absolute safety. The moment Matsumoto Takeyoshi stepped into the cave, the 2 men saw Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Swoosh! The 2 men flashed and appeared in front of Matsumoto Takeyoshi in an instant. Mr. Matsumoto, Sasaki, who was extremely tall, bowed his head and greeted Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Akichi Miyamoto, who was in black armor, also nodded his head to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Akichi Miyamoto never spoke to anyone, including Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Well, thank you for your hard work. Matsumoto Takeyoshi nodded his head and said to the 2 men. The 2 men returned the courtesy. Matsumoto Takeyoshi stepped forward and walked slowly toward Kazuken Sato. The 3 men followed closely behind. At this time, Kazuken Sato was concentrating on observing the temperature changes of the 13 furnaces. Coupled with the sound of the blazing fire and the sound of people adding charcoal, he did not notice Matsumoto Takeyoshi's arrival at all. After arriving at Kazuken Sato's side, Matsumoto Takeyoshi respectfully bowed his head to Kazuken Sato and said, "Greetings, Sato-senpai." Kazuken Sato frowned and turned his head abruptly, ready to get angry. The most taboo thing for him when he was casting was to be disturbed by others. Because of this, Sasaki and Akichi Miyamoto stood far away to avoid affecting his casting. However, when he saw that it was Matsumoto Takeyoshi standing opposite him and saluting him, Kazuken Sato's anger suddenly disappeared. It turned out to be Mr. Matsumoto. This old man has been rude. Kazuken Sato returned the salute to Matsumoto Takeyoshi and quickly took the coarse cloth robe from the seat behind him and put it on his body. It was too rude to talk to Matsumoto Takeyoshi with a bare upper body. Mr. Matsumoto worked hard to cast the sword. Matsumoto is really sorry, so I came to visit Mr. Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Matsumoto Takeyoshi said and glanced sideways at the man in white. The man in white understood and took out a palm-sized, extremely delicate emerald jade bottle from his arms and handed it to Matsumoto Takeyoshi with both hands. This bottle contains 12 marrow-bone replenishing pills, which have the effect of hematopoiesis and bone replenishing effects. It is a possession of the great Ming dynasty. After Matsumoto got it, he has been reluctant to swallow it. Senior has worked hard to cast the sword for Matsumoto Takeyoshi. This pill is for Senior to take. Matsumoto Takeyoshi said, and handed the emerald jade bottle to Kazuken Sato with both hands. How can this be? Kazuken Sato declined. Although this old man is old, my body is still strong. It's okay, Sato-senpai. This is Mr. Matsumoto's kind intentions. Senior should accept it, otherwise Mr. Matsumoto will feel uneasy. The man in white respectfully said to Kazuken Sato. Well, since Mr. Matsumoto is so kind, this old man will accept it. Kazuken Sato took the emerald bottle handed by Matsumoto Takeyoshi with both hands and said, Sato-senpai is too polite, Matsumoto Takeyoshi said and changed the topic. I wonder how the casting of this batch of swords is going? As he spoke, he turned slightly and looked at the 13 huge furnaces in front of him. The first batch of swords has been refined. Kazuken Sato also turned to look at the 13 furnaces and said, the furnaces that Mr. Matsumoto is looking at now are the fusion of various swords. According to my calculations, in 3 days, the meteoric iron in the furnaces will be completely fused. At that time, this old man can cast the sword. How many swords are there in the first batch? When will they be ready? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked Kazuken Sato. There are 100 swords in the first batch. After the materials are fused, it will take 3 days to complete. Kazuken Sato said to Matsumoto Takeyoshi, if all 600 swords are cast, it will take about a month. Matsumoto Takeyoshi nodded. After the man in white heard the number Kazuken Sato said, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. Are the materials needed to cast the swords enough? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked Kazuken Sato again. More than enough, Kazuken Sato replied. After casting the swords, almost half of the meteoric iron materials will be left. In that case, Matsumoto will trouble Sato-senpai again to use the remaining meteoric iron materials to make another batch of armor. Matsumoto Takeyoshi turned to look at Kazuken Sato and said, Kazuken Sato looked embarrassed. What's the matter? Senpai has a problem? Matsumoto Takeyoshi saw Kazuken Sato frown and immediately asked. To tell you the truth, Mr. Matsumoto, Kazuken Sato said, I once made an oath that I will only cast swords and weapons in my life, not other things. Is that so? Matsumoto Takeyoshi nodded and said, then Senpai Sato can smelt the remaining materials and let these craftsmen make the armor, is that okay? That's okay. Kazuken Sato nodded and said, the hundreds of brawny men in the cave are all famous craftsmen hired by Matsumoto Takeyoshi. As long as the materials are good, there is no problem in making armor. Matsumoto Takeyoshi's face showed a smile. The top swords, the top armor, plus the top combat power of the Black Feather Army, the three combined into one can be said to be invincible and invincible. I really want to see this batch of swords earlier and appreciate Senpai's masterpiece. Looking at the huge furnace in front of him, Matsumoto Takeyoshi said with emotion. He was anxious to know the combat power of this batch of swords. When comparing the materials, I tried to make a sword with the meteorite iron sent by Mr. Matsumoto to determine the best ratio of various meteorite iron. Kazuken Sato said to Matsumoto Takeyoshi, if Mr. Matsumoto wants to try it, I can fulfill your wish. Matsumoto Takeyoshi heard Kazuken Sato's words and suddenly his eyes lit up. Senpai has already made a sword. Kazuken Sato nodded with a smile. Quick, let Matsumoto see it. Matsumoto Takeyoshi eagerly said to Kazuken Sato. Kazuken Sato smiled, turned around and walked to an iron cabinet not far away, reached out and opened it, and took out a sword that was still in its scabbard. I made this sword casually to test the hardness and toughness of the casting material, so I just made a rough edge and did not polish it carefully, nor did I decorate it. Mr. Matsumoto, please don't be offended. Kazuken Sato came to Matsumoto Takeyoshi and handed the sword to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Matsumoto Takeyoshi excitedly took the sword with both hands. The sword was neither light nor heavy, and it felt excellent to the touch. It did not feel too light and powerless, but it also did not feel heavy and strenuous to wield. Although Matsumoto Takeyoshi did not have a cultivation base, he was an expert in using swords. When he touched the sword, he felt that this sword was not ordinary. It was like a masked beauty, although the beauty was covered with a veil and could not be seen, but the temperament of the beauty could generally determine that this person was excellent. Chapter 779. Buzz. Less than an inch after the sword left the scabbard, countless dazzling white lights erupted from the scabbard, dazzling the eyes. The dazzling white light illuminated Matsumoto Takeyoshi's astonished face. Matsumoto Takeyoshi was not the only one who was shocked. The white-clothed man behind him, Yamada Shingo, Sasaki, and the black-armored Miyamoto Akichi were all captivated by the gleaming blade in Matsumoto Takeyoshi's hand. As the saying goes, the layman enjoys the show, while the expert appreciates the skill. They were all masters of using swords, so they naturally knew how to appraise swords. The white light emitted by this saber was far from what an ordinary saber or sword could compare with. This was because the light emitted by an ordinary saber or sword was just an ordinary reflection of light. However, the light emitted by this saber in front of him was saber chi, an incomparably pure saber energy. Clang with the roar of a tiger and the roar of a dragon, Matsumoto Takeyoshi completely pulled out the entire sword from the scabbard. Whoosh, the white light of the sword burst out, and the sword energy was everywhere. The sword was 4 feet and 4 inches long, and 1.5 inches wide. The body of the sword was dazzling white light, and the sword energy around it was as dazzling as snow. At first glance, it looked like a top-grade piece of white jade. Matsumoto Takeyoshi held the sword in front of his eyes, and reached out to touch the body of the sword. The body of the sword was smooth and delicate, like the skin of a beauty, but at the same time, it was cold to the bone and soul. The arc of the entire sword was beautiful, and the weight ratio of the hilt and the body of the sword had reached an excellent balance. Good sword. What a good sword! Looking at the jade-like sword in his hand, Matsumoto Takeyoshi praised from the bottom of his heart. It is indeed a good sword. The man in white, who was usually quiet, also praised from the bottom of his heart. Sasaki and Miyamoto Akichi also nodded at this time. Sato-senpai, do you have a name for this sword? Matsumoto Takeyoshi looked at Sato and asked. I have a name for this blade, but I don't know if it's suitable. Ishiken Sato smiled. What's his name? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked. Jade Bone. Kazuken Sato spat out 2 words. Jade Bone. Matsumoto Takeyoshi's eyes lit up. Ice Skin Jade Bone. That's a good name. Good name. Jade Bone Saber. The saber lives up to its name. The man in white nodded slowly. You're flattering me, Ishiken Sato said with a smile. Sato-senpai, can Matsumoto use this blade to test its edge? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked Sato. This saber is just a prototype. It's rough, and its edge is not that sharp. If you want to test its edge, I'm afraid you will be disappointed. Ishiken Sato said to Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Senpai is too modest. Although Matsumoto is not good at using a saber, he has done a lot of research on saber technique. Matsumoto Takeyoshi held the saber in front of his eyes and looked at it carefully. This saber's aura has been formed. It's as bright as snow and as shiny as jade. It's enough to show its sharpness. Although it's just a rough blade, it can still cut copper and iron. Matsumoto Takeyoshi said, and waved the jade bone saber in his hand toward a wooden chair not far away for resting. Shwa! A faint white arc was waved from the jade bone saber and went straight to the wooden chair 10 feet away. Kacha! After a crisp sound, the wooden chair was instantly divided into two. The masters' faces changed instantly. This saber was really powerful. Even Matsumoto Takeyoshi, who had no cultivation, could use this saber's aura. One had to know that this saber was just a test product that Ishikin Sato casually made. The title of Japanese Saber King was well deserved. Ha ha! Good saber! Good saber! Matsumoto Takeyoshi was stunned at first, but then he laughed heartily and said the word good twice in a row. If this saber was so powerful in his hands, what if it was in the hands of the Black Feathers ninja? Thinking of this, Matsumoto Takeyoshi's face showed a satisfied smile. Senpai Sato is indeed the Japanese Saber King. It's my honor to receive your help, Matsumoto Takeyoshi praised as he returned the jade bone saber in his hand to Ishikin Sato and returned the saber with both hands. Mr. Matsumoto, you're too kind. Ishikin Sato took the saber with both hands and replied with a smile. I wonder if this batch of sabers will be as powerful as the jade bone saber after they're made? Matsumoto Takeyoshi asked Ishikin Sato. Ha ha ha! Ishikin Sato laughed and said, this jade bone saber is something that I casually made. How can it be compared to this batch of sabers? Oh? Senpai, you mean? Matsumoto Takeyoshi was slightly shocked after hearing this. According to Ishikin Sato's words, this batch of sabers would be even more powerful than the jade bone saber. I can't guarantee anything else, but this batch of sabers that I've made for Mr. Matsumoto will be more than 3 times more powerful than the jade bone saber. Ishikin Sato laughed. What? More than 3 times? Matsumoto Takeyoshi was shocked after hearing this. Not only him, but the 3 experts standing behind him also instantly changed their expressions and were shocked on the spot. This jade bone saber was already a divine weapon with amazing power. A saber with 3 times more powerful than the jade bone saber, how powerful would that be? Is what Senpai said true? Matsumoto Takeyoshi recovered and asked Ishikin Sato seriously. After this batch of sabers is made, Senpai will know. Ishikin Sato smiled mysteriously. Above the clouds, Yi-fan and Akatsuki, who was holding Baihu in her arms, stepped on the auspicious clouds and flew quickly toward the western region. Shandong and the western region, 2 places, one east and one west, spanned more than thousands of miles. Because of this, Yi-fan pushed the auspicious clouds under his feet to the extreme, as fast as lightning. Akatsuki mobilized the spiritual power in her body and completely wrapped herself and Baihu in her arms to resist the cold air in the sky. I didn't expect you to have so many old friends in your previous life. Akatsuki said to Yi-fan, you even have friends in the demon realm. Friends are friends. There is no distinction between the human realm and the demon realm. Yi-fan smiled and said, there are good and bad people, and the same goes for demons and ghosts. That's true. Akatsuki smiled and said, since Ye Zijing and Mr. Wu are good friends, I don't think he is a bad person. Oh no, a bad demon. You will know everything when you see him. Yi-fan smiled at Akatsuki. By the way, there is one thing I haven't had time to ask you. What was the thing that followed us at the entrance of the Li family fort? Akatsuki asked Yi-fan. It was also a demon, and it seemed to have some skills. It kept following us and staring at us. At that time, we had just arrived, and we couldn't act rashly and alert it. That was why I gave you a look to be more vigilant. Yi-fan explained to Akatsuki. What kind of demon was that? Why was it staring at us? Akatsuki asked, puzzled. That thing looked like a bear, but not a bear. It had 2 horns on its head. I don't know what it was either. It could have been a passing demon, or it could have come down from the treasured tripod mountain. Who knows? Yi Fan said. I saw that the demon just turned into a breeze and followed us. It didn't have any intention of attacking us, so I didn't bother with it. When I showed the cloud riding technique to Uncle Lee, that guy left. Akatsuki nodded. According to her conjecture, that thing must have been scared away by Yi Fan. Yi Fan had passed the heavenly tribulation and his body already contained the might of the heavenly thunder. In addition, he had used the cloud riding technique, causing the monster to behave like Uncle Lee. It had mistakenly thought that Yi Fan was a celestial that had descended from the heavenly realm, which was why it had hurriedly escaped. In the future, other than searching for the tripod, you will be in charge of all the missions that Matsumoto Takeyoshi gives us. You will be the leader, and I will be the assistant. Yi Fan turned to look at Akatsuki and said with a smile, I will be the leader, and you will be the assistant? Akatsuki looked at Yi Fan suspiciously. Why? Train your ability to make decisions and adapt according to the situation, Yi Fan said as he turned his head to look in front of him. The ways of the world are ever-changing and the hearts of men are sinister. If you want to survive in this dangerous world, just having a cultivation base is far from enough. You must experience many things and accumulate experience. This includes the experience of reading people's hearts, manipulating the situation, exchanging blows with experts, and even the experience of facing death. Only then will you be invincible in the future. Only then will you be able to survive better in this world. Why are you suddenly talking about this? Akatsuki frowned and asked Yi Fan. She didn't know why, but Yi Fan's words made her feel a little uneasy. All good things must come to an end. The day will come when we part ways. Yi Fan calmly stared into the distant sky and calmly said, When I'm not by your side, no one will be able to take care of you. You'll have to deal with all the dangers on your own. I can give you cultivation, but I can't give you experience. So, while I'm still by your side, you should train yourself more. That way, when we part ways in the future, I'll be able to rest assured. After listening to Yi Fan's words, Akatsuki's nose turned sour, and tears flowed down her face. No wonder he took the initiative to pass on his spiritual chi cultivation to her. No wonder he recently began to ask her about her speculation and analysis of what she had encountered. It turned out that he was thinking about her future. In other words, he was preparing for their future separation. Akatsuki understood his actions very well. Now, among the 9 tripod cauldrons, Yi Fan had already obtained 5 and would soon obtain the 6th. The day of saving his wife's true soul was getting closer and closer. Just as he had said, the day when the 2 of them would part would soon come. At that time, she would return to Japan, and Yi Fan would live in seclusion with his wife, Fujiwara no Chiko, in the Lingyun cave, living a life of immortals who did not care about the world. She and Yi Fan would no longer have any interaction. However, although she knew that this was the inevitable outcome and understood Yi Fan's actions, she really could not accept the pain of being separated from Yi Fan forever. What she had experienced with Yi Fan was no less than what she had experienced with Fujiwara no Chiko. She really wanted to tell Yi Fan that she did not want to be separated from him, but compared to Yi Fan's feelings for Fujiwara no Chiko, this sentence was too weak. Even if she had the courage to say it, it would not change anything. It would only make her more painful. She could do nothing but cry now. After I find the 9 tripod cauldrons, immediately find an excuse to return to Japan. Don't stay by Matsumoto Takeyoshi's side, Yi Fan continued. At that time, I will focus on studying the 9 tripod cauldrons' secret technique and saving Chiko's true soul. Then, I will settle all my grudges with Matsumoto Takeyoshi. If you stay in the Great Ming Dynasty, it will be disadvantageous for you. At that time, if Akatsuki was still in the Great Ming Dynasty, Matsumoto Takeyoshi would be the first to order her to attack Yi Fan. At that time, Akatsuki would be caught in a dilemma. Therefore, for Akatsuki, leaving the Great Ming Dynasty early was the safest way. Chapter 780. I'll listen to you. Akatsuki wiped her tears and sobbed. I'll do whatever you say. Akatsuki's words made Yi Fan's heart ache. If Akatsuki had refused, he would have felt better. However, Akatsuki had always listened to him no matter what. This made him suddenly feel that he owed Akatsuki a lot. He took out a white handkerchief and handed it to Akatsuki. Don't cry. Wipe your tears, Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. After everything is over, you can come to the Great Ming Dynasty to look for me and go to the Lingyun Cave to play. I can also take Chico to Dongying to see you. By then, you'll have learned how to ride the clouds. It will take at most 2 hours to travel from Dongying to the Great Ming Dynasty. After you reunite with your wife, I won't see you again. Akatsuki took the white handkerchief from Yi Fan. She wiped her tears and said with red eyes, You don't have to go to Dongying to see me. There's nothing to see. You'd better accompany your wife. Yi Fan frowned when he heard this. You're saying this out of anger. Yi Fan turned his head and said, I'm not saying this out of anger. Akatsuki took a deep breath and said, I look exactly like your wife. If she sees me, she'll definitely be suspicious. So, it's better not to see her so that she won't misunderstand. When that time comes, I might be preparing to get married and have my own family. So, no matter what, it's better if we don't meet in the future. You're going to get married? Yi Fan was shocked when he heard this. His heart skipped a beat. My master has a junior brother from the same sect. He has a disciple named Kiyoshi Yamamoto, Akatsuki said to Yi Fan. He's always liked me and repeatedly begged my master to betroth me to him. Before coming to the Great Ming Dynasty, my master had already agreed to this marriage. He said that he would arrange for us to get married after I returned to Dongying from the Great Ming Dynasty. As Akatsuki spoke, tears fell like rain. Yi Fan remained silent after hearing that. He didn't expect Akatsuki to already be engaged. This matter caught him off guard, as if he had been hit by a stick. As to why he felt this way, he didn't know. Do you like that Kiyoshi Yamamoto? After a long time, Yi Fan asked Akatsuki. His question was simply nonsense. He knew better than anyone else who Akatsuki liked. What do you think? Akatsuki raised her head to look at Yi Fan and asked in a choked voice. Yi Fan was silent again. His heart was in a mess and his mind was in a mess. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. At this moment, his heart felt lost. It was as if it had suddenly become empty, and he wasn't as steady as before. The two of them had their own thoughts and were silent. They could only hear the whistling of the wind in their ears. After 2 hours, the auspicious clouds began to gradually enter the western region. The temperature of the air had risen a lot compared to before. The scorching sun above their heads shone a golden light on their bodies. Although it was close to late autumn, the western region was still extremely hot. In this region, there were no clouds other than the auspicious clouds under their feet. Under their feet, a vast sea of sand rose and fell. It was a spectacular sight. Above the sea of sand, a few yellow earthen cities stood alone. The earthen cities blended in with the surrounding yellow sand. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see them. Look, there are clouds, there are clouds. In the shadows of the city wall, a little boy wearing only a pair of homespun shorts inadvertently raised his head and saw Yi Fan's auspicious clouds. He hurriedly stood up and shouted. This region was dry all year round and incomparably hot. Most of the time, the clouds would be blown away by the hot air before they could form. Therefore, it was very rare to see clouds here, especially white clouds. When the boy shouted, many people who were enjoying the shade at the base of the city wall raised their heads. They shaded their eyes with their hands and looked up at the sky. There's only one cloud, it won't rain. A man who had been tanned until his skin was shiny lowered his head and muttered. The little boy still had his childish innocence. He madly ran toward Yi Fan's auspicious clouds. He only stopped when he couldn't catch up anymore. We should have entered the western region by now. Above the clouds, Yi Fan looked down at the vast expanse of yellow sand below and said, "Yes." Akatsuki softly replied, "Let's go down and take a look. We'll ask the people here if there are any volcanoes nearby and take a rest." Yi Fan looked at Akatsuki and said, "Okay." Akatsuki replied. She still hadn't gotten over what had just happened. Her eyes were still red. Yi Fan flicked his sleeves and urged the auspicious clouds to slowly descend. After a short while, the two of them landed in a deserted area beside an earthen city. Yi Fan had just withdrawn his mental force from the auspicious clouds when the auspicious clouds under his feet were instantly evaporated by the heat emitted from the sea of sand. This place was too hot. It was even hotter than the Fire Dragon town. As soon as Akatsuki's feet touched the ground, her brows furrowed and she moaned softly. She was wearing thin-soled boots. The heat from the yellow sand instantly passed through the soles of her shoes and spread to her feet, causing her unbearable pain. The sudden pain caused Akatsuki to instinctively activate her movement technique. Her feet were 3 inches off the ground. "It's too hot here. Use your spiritual energy to protect your feet. Otherwise, you'll be scalded." Yi Fan shaded his eyes with his hands and looked around the earthen city in front of him. "Okay." Akatsuki replied. She immediately laid down a layer of spiritual energy under her feet to isolate the heat from the soles of her shoes. Then, she slowly landed on the ground. "Let's go to the city and ask around," Yi Fan said. He stepped on the yellow sand and walked toward the entrance of the earthen city not far away. When they were in the Fire Dragon town, he would use his cold energy to condense an ice canopy to shield Akatsuki from the scorching sun. However, he wouldn't do that this time, because he wanted to train Akatsuki's ability to survive. Akatsuki took out a crystal mask from her bosom and put it on her face. Then, she followed closely behind Yi Fan. Because Baihu couldn't stand the scorching sun, she plunged her head into Akatsuki's arms and refused to come out even if she was beaten to death. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, 2 people and 1 fox arrived at the entrance of the city. The 2 soldiers guarding the gate hugged their spears and lazily leaned against the shadows in the corner of the city gate. They were constantly fanning themselves with the hats in their hands while chatting in a low voice. In the shadows of the aisles in the earthen city, men and women of all ages sat there. Their lips were dry and almost cracked. They sat there listlessly with lifeless eyes. On their bodies, except for the key parts that were covered by coarse cloth, the rest of their skin was almost all exposed. Yi Fan furrowed his brows at the sight of this. It was the same desert and the same scorching sun. But Flaming Dragon Town was prosperous and the people lived in peace and contentment. But here, they lived in poverty and were miserable. It was almost a dead city. Yi Fan thought in his heart and walked into the city. The 2 people's clothes didn't attract anyone's attention. They were hungry and thirsty, their mouths were dry, their faces were haggard, and they were skinny. It was good enough that they had the strength to breathe. How could they have the energy to look at other people's clothes? Akatsuki was also shocked by the miserable scene here. The miserable life of the people here was far beyond her imagination. Woo! Woo! The 2 people were walking on the street in shock. A low cry came from not far ahead. It was a young and skinny woman who was crying. In her arms, she was holding a skinny baby. The baby's eyes were closed. It looked less than 1 year old. The skin that was supposed to be rosy and tender was now dark and dry. "Maisha! My Maisha! Woo-woo!" The woman leaned the baby against her face and cried bitterly. "Let's go take a look," Yi Fan said to Akatsuki as he quickened his pace and walked towards the woman. Akatsuki nodded and followed closely behind. Miss, what happened to you? Yifan came in front of the crying woman and asked as he squatted down. Maisha. My Maisha can't take it anymore. Woo-woo. The woman raised her head and said to Yifan with tears in her eyes. Obviously, the baby in her arms was called Maisha. What happened to the baby? Yifan asked the woman. The baby hasn't drunk water for 2 days. She can't take it anymore, the woman said as she cried. Yifan frowned and gently placed his sword under the baby's nose. The baby was still alive, but her breath was very weak. How's the baby? Akatsuki bent down and asked Yifan anxiously. If we came a little later, the baby would have died, Yifan said with a frown and moved his sword away from the baby's nose. My 2 benefactors, do you have any water with you? Can you save my baby? I beg you, I can do anything for you. The woman with the baby in her arms knelt on the ground and begged the 2 of them. We don't have any water with us, but we can save your baby. Get up, get up. Yifan helped the woman up. You can save my Maisha? The woman asked Yifan in shock. Yifan nodded. Other than being malnourished, the baby was fine. She just lacked water. As long as the baby was given some water, she would recover. Give me the baby, Yifan said to the woman. The woman passed the baby to Yifan. She didn't quite understand. Yifan carefully took the baby and held her in his arms. He held the baby with his right arm and flipped his left hand. At the same time, he activated the ice core in his body. Cheed as cold smoke rose from Yifan's palm, a crystal-clear ice block the size of a palm appeared in his hand out of thin air. After the ice cube appeared, Yifan held it tightly and slowly placed it above the baby's lip. Drip, drip. The ice cube melted under the temperature of Yifan's palm and turned into crystal-clear water droplets. Drop by drop, they dripped into the baby's cracked lip. While dripping water into the baby's mouth, Yifan gently blew on the baby's lip. A thin white light came out of Yifan's mouth and flew into the baby's mouth. He transferred a trace of energy from his body and blew it into the baby's body. Chapter 781. With the gradual moistening of the water and the slow movement of the Yuan Qi, the baby in Yifan's arms began to react. Her little mouth began to gradually open, and her weak and boneless little hands began to move. After a while, the baby opened a pair of big watery eyes and looked at Yifan. Seeing this, Yifan smiled. The child was no longer in danger. Giggle, giggle. The baby seemed to know that the silver-haired man holding her was her savior. She stretched out her little hand and gently touched the stubble on Yifan's chin and giggled. Looking at the baby in his arms smiling at him, Yifan felt a little emotional. If nothing had happened, his and his wife's child should be this big now. Maisa, my Maisa. After seeing that her daughter had completely recovered, the tearful woman couldn't help but cover her mouth and cry tears of joy. As the saying goes, mother and child are connected by heart. The child's recovery made her happier than anything else. Maisa, go find your mother. Yifan kissed the forehead of the baby in his arms, and then handed the child back to the mother. After the woman took the child, she cried even harder. She almost lost her own flesh and blood. Guest, thank you, thank you. The woman knelt down in front of Yifan and said while crying. Without Yifan, she could only watch helplessly as her child died. It's nothing, get up. Yifan reached out and helped the woman up. The woman stood up and wiped her tears with the back of her dirty hand. If I'm not wrong, you're Han, right? Yifan asked the woman. The woman's appearance was completely different from the other people here. In addition, she could speak Han, and her accent was exactly the same as Han, so Yifan speculated that she was Han. Yes, the woman wiped her tears, nodded and said, to be honest, I'm Han. My ancestral home is the Central Plains. My father was a businessman and often came here to do business. Later I married here. No wonder. Yifan nodded. Where's your husband? Akatsuki asked the woman. Why are you here alone? My husband went out with others to look for water a month ago, and he hasn't come back yet." As the woman spoke, her tears flowed down uncontrollably. In this vast desert, if one did not return for a month, there was an 80 to 90% chance that one had died outside. Yi Fan frowned and said nothing. "Miss, I have some silver here. Take it." Akatsuki took out a silver ingot from her bosom and handed it to the woman. "You are an orphan and a widow. It's not easy." "Oh no." When the woman saw Akatsuki giving her money, she immediately refused. "I can't take your money, I can't take." "How are you and your mother going to survive if you don't have money in your current state?" Akatsuki asked the woman. "Now is the time when the child needs milk. If you can't keep up with the nutrition, the child will suffer. Even if you don't think for yourself, you have to think for Maisha." The woman pursed her lips and bowed her head. "Listen to me. Take it," Akatsuki said and stuffed 50 silver ingots into the woman's hands. Thank you. The woman bowed to the two with tears in her eyes. Akatsuki helped the woman up and wiped her tears. They were both women and knew the difficulties of being a woman. "I haven't asked for your name yet," Yi Fan asked the woman. "My surname is Dong and my name is Ing," the woman replied. "Miss Dong, I have something to ask you." Yi Fan was going to ask her about the nearby volcano. He couldn't just wait for the scorpion demon to find him. "My two benefactors, this is not the place to talk." The woman interrupted Yi Fan and said to the two of them, "My house is not far away. My two benefactors must have come from afar. Please come to my house and rest. We can talk there." As the woman spoke, she glanced at the men not far away. Yi Fan furrowed his brows and followed the woman's gaze. A few topless men were looking at them with ill intentions, their faces unfriendly. It was obvious that they had witnessed the scene of Yi Fan condensing the ice with his bare hands. They also saw that Akatsuki gave the woman a large ingot of silver. When he saw Yi Fan looking at them, one of the burly men curled his lips with a fierce look in his eyes. He immediately stood up and prepared to walk over. Obviously, he thought that Yi Fan had water and a lot of money, so he prepared to rob him. When a person reached the limit of survival, they would do anything. As soon as he stood up, the men beside him pulled him back and whispered a few words to him. After the brawny man heard this, he looked at the sword on Akatsuki's back. After a while, the man sat back in the shadow of the mud wall under the persuasion of the others, but his eyes were still fixed on Yi Fan. There was no need to guess. They were afraid of the sword on Akatsuki's back. They didn't dare to provoke the Japanese samurai. Yi Fan glanced at the brawny man and turned his head. He already understood the meaning of the woman's words. "Hongji, you and Miss Dong go to his house and wait for me. I'll be there in a while," Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. You want to?" Akatsuki said to Yi Fan and glanced at the men. Yi Fan nodded lightly. "Sir, you should come home with me. It's not safe here," the woman said to Yi Fan vaguely. "Don't worry, he won't be unsafe. Those who provoke him will be unsafe." Akatsuki glanced at Yi Fan and said, But. The woman didn't understand Akatsuki's words, and was still worried about Yi Fan. "No buts, let's go first. He'll be done in a while," Akatsuki said and pulled the woman to a mud building in the distance. On the way out, the woman looked back at Yi Fan with a worried face. After sending the two of them off with his gaze, Yi Fan turned around and slowly walked into a deserted alley. Not long after Yi Fan entered the alleyway, the men not far away stood up and walked quickly towards him. They followed him into the alleyway as well. Before entering the alley, the brawny man picked up a brick from the ground. However, when they entered the alley, they were surprised to find that Yi Fan had already disappeared. They looked around and carefully searched for him. "Are you looking for me?" Yi Fan's voice sounded from behind them. After a few howls of anguish, Yi Fan walked out of the alley with his hands clasped behind his back and whistled as he made his way toward the mud building. Those people had to be taught a lesson. Otherwise, that woman would be bullied once he and Akatsuki left this place. Helping people to the end was Yi Fan's way of doing things. Yi Fan quickly found the woman's residence by following the traces of spiritual energy left behind by Akatsuki. This was a mud building, and it was filled with exotic charm. It could be seen that this family was quite wealthy in the past. Yi Fan pushed open the door and walked in. The courtyard was very spacious, and there was even a Chinese-style pavilion. Sir, you're back? So fast? The woman was immediately surprised at the sight of Yi Fan's return. She and Akatsuki had only just stepped into the courtyard when Yi Fan returned. On the way here, Akatsuki had already told her that Yi Fan had gone to teach those people a lesson and would be back soon. She could tell that Yi Fan was not an ordinary person from the fact that Yi Fan had conjured that block of ice out of thin air, but she didn't expect that Yi Fan would be able to teach those people a lesson so quickly. He's already very slow, Akatsuki said as she sat on a stone bench in the pavilion. Yi Fan smiled and walked into the pavilion. Please wait for a moment, I'll bring some food, the woman said as she carried her child into the house. What did you do to those people? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan after the woman left. What else could I do? Yi Fan smiled and said, I just threw a few casual punches. Just a few casual punches? Wouldn't you have beaten them to death? Akatsuki looked at Yi Fan with her beautiful eyes and asked in surprise. Don't worry, I didn't use any spiritual power, so they won't die. Yi Fan said, I haven't hit anyone like this in a long time, so I'm a little rusty. But it's quite satisfying and satisfying. Ever since he obtained spiritual power, he had never used ordinary fists and feet to hit anyone. When he was fighting those people just now, Yi Fan couldn't find the feeling at first. He didn't know how to fight. After all, as he said, he hadn't fought like this for a long time. Every move he made was usually a deadly move. It was only when the burly man's fist landed on Yi Fan's chest and he was sent flying by the 8 treasures jade silk robe that Yi Fan was wearing. Only then did Yi Fan regain the feeling of fighting when he was young. In the end, those people were beaten black and blue by Yi Fan until their faces were swollen like pig heads. They kept crying out in pain. Of course, although Yi Fan didn't use any spiritual power, the speed of his punches couldn't be any faster. Those people didn't even see the shadow of Yi Fan's punches before they started rolling on the ground like pigs being slaughtered. Before Yi Fan left, he said that as long as this woman lost a single hair, he would have their heads cut off. In order to make them believe his words, Yi Fan even kicked down a 3-foot-thick mud wall in the alley. These people cried and wiped their tears, kowtowed like they were pounding garlic, and swore to the heavens in broken Chinese that they wouldn't dare to touch a single hair on that woman's head. After listening to Yi Fan's story, Akatsuki couldn't help but laugh. She couldn't imagine what Yi Fan looked like when he was fighting. As the two were talking, the woman came over with a tray. In the tray there were raisins, walnuts, dried dates, and dried mutton. In addition, there were 2 white porcelain cups with blue flowers. The porcelain cups were filled with purplish red wine. I'm sorry, benefactors. We don't have any more water at home. We only have the wine from last year. I hope you don't mind. The woman said apologetically as she placed the things on the tray one by one on the table. There is no water in the house, then what do you drink? Yi Fan frowned and asked the woman. I'm not afraid of being laughed at, but there is a bucket of water in the house, but it is the muddy rainwater collected before. People will feel uncomfortable after drinking it. Maya is still young, so I don't dare to let her drink it, and I also don't dare to let my 2 benefactors drink it. The woman said softly and slowly lowered her head. Sigh, it's been hard on you. Yi Fan sighed and said to the woman, Go to your house and bring out all the jars and jars that can hold water. I'll help you get the water. Chapter 782. After a while, the spacious courtyard was filled with jars and jars of various sizes. With the help of Yu Hongji, everything that could hold water, from large vats and buckets to small pots and pans, was brought to the courtyard by the woman. "Mister, everything that can hold water is here," the woman said to Yi Fan after she moved the last jar. "Okay, stand aside," Yi Fan said to the woman as he walked to a large wooden barrel. He activated the ice core in his body and stretched out his palm toward the wooden barrel. Whoosh, a white light as thick as a bowl shot out from Yi Fan's palm and went straight into the wooden barrel. Crack, 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 with a crisp sound, cold smoke rose from the wooden barrel and white fog rose. When the white fog gradually dissipated, the woman was shocked by the scene in front of her. The wooden barrel was filled with huge, crystal-clear ice cubes. Whoosh, Yi Fan moved and adjusted the direction of the cold air in his hand. He swept it toward the other jars on the ground. Crack, 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 the courtyard was filled with cold air and white fog, rising into the air. The courtyard, which was scorching hot just a moment ago, suddenly became cool and even a little cold. Under the woman's shocked gaze, Yi Fan filled all the jars and jars with ice cubes. At this time, the courtyard was filled with a cool breeze, which was refreshing. Under the sunlight, the crystal-clear ice cubes shone brightly. "This water is enough for you to use for 2 months," Yi Fan said to the woman as he retracted the cold air and looked at the ice cubes in the courtyard. "Thank you so much, mister, thank you so much," the woman said in surprise as she walked toward the jars and jars. She looked at the crystal-clear ice cubes in front of her in disbelief. To some extent, this water was more precious than gold. Even if one had money, it was impossible to buy such clean and clear water. "You're welcome. I'll help you move the water into the building and store it," Yi Fan said to the woman. "Remember, you can't mention this to anyone else. Otherwise, it will be bad for you." If those people outside knew that this woman had so much good water in her house, they would definitely swarm in. When a person couldn't survive, they wouldn't care about anything. I understand. The woman nodded. "You haven't drunk water for days. Come, let's sit in the pavilion and talk while drinking," Akatsuki said to the woman as she walked towards the pavilion with 2 porcelain bowls filled with ice. Yes, the woman responded. She also picked up a kettle and a large bowl and walked into the pavilion. The 3 of them sat back down. After sitting down, Yi Fan gently brushed the ice on the table with one hand. At the same time, he activated the Fire Snake Dragon Ball. Whoosh, after Yi Fan waved his hand, the ice in the container instantly melted and turned into clear water. The woman was dumbfounded again. "Miss Dong, drink some water first." Yi Fan gently pushed a bowl of water in front of the woman and said, "Thank you, sir," the woman said as she carefully picked up the bowl, fearing that even a drop of water would spill out. She put the bowl to her mouth and began to gulp it down. The water was sweet, refreshing and thirst-quenching, just like nectar. She hadn't drunk such delicious water for a long time. "Drink slowly, don't choke, there's more," Akatsuki said to the woman who was gulping down the water. After the woman finished the bowl, Yi Fan picked up the kettle and refilled it for her. "Drink another bowl," Yi Fan said. The woman nodded and drank all the water in the bowl. She had been thirsty for too long. Whenever she couldn't stand it anymore, she would use the stinky sewage water in her house to moisten her throat. She didn't dare to drink too much. Now that she tasted such sweet and clear water, she instinctively drank as much as she could. "I've embarrassed myself in front of my 2 benefactors." After the woman finished drinking, she put the porcelain bowl on the table and said embarrassedly to the 2 of them, "Looking at the way you drink water, even I'm thirsty." Yi Fan smiled and took a sip of water. The woman smiled. "Miss Dong, do you know where there are volcanoes around here?" Yi Fan put down the porcelain bowl and asked the woman. "Volcanoes?" the woman asked Yi Fan in return. "Yes, volcanoes," Yi Fan answered. "Which one are you talking about?" the woman asked Yi Fan. "Why, are there many volcanoes here?" Akatsuki asked the woman. "Yes." The woman turned her head and said to Akatsuki, There are many volcanoes here. There are more than 10 big volcanoes and dozens of small ones. Where are they? Are they far from here? Yi Fan asked. Far away. The woman replied to Yi Fan. The nearest one is more than 300 miles away, and the farthest one is more than 800 miles away. There are volcanoes in all 4 directions. Yi Fan frowned after hearing this. There were so many volcanoes, and they were distributed over such a wide area. If they were to find them one by one, it would not be difficult, but it would take some time. I think we should wait here. What do you think? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. The centipede spirit said that the scorpion spirit had the ability to recognize auspicious light. As long as they entered the western region, it would definitely find them. If they directly went to find the volcano with the powerful barrier, it would not be a good idea. It would not be as simple as just wasting time. This place was vast and sparsely populated. If they rashly appeared in the various volcanic areas, it was very likely that they would be discovered by Matsumoto Takeyoshi's shadow ninjas. Rather than that, it was better to stay here and wait for the scorpion spirit's arrival. After Yi Fan listened, he slowly nodded. If he guessed correctly, the scorpion spirit should already be here. If he and Akatsuki left here now, the scorpion spirit's journey would be in vain, and it would have to continue to look for them. Akatsuki was right, they should wait here. Are the 2 benefactors waiting for someone? The woman asked after hearing the conversation between the 2. Yes, we are waiting for a person, Akatsuki replied. If she said that they were waiting for a scorpion spirit, the woman would probably faint from fright. Oh, the woman responded. She hesitated when she heard Akatsuki's answer, so she did not ask any more questions. How long has it been since there was no water to drink in this place? Yi Fan asked the woman. Almost 3 months. The woman replied. It hasn't rained for 3 months, the crops in the field and the grapes in the garden have all died, even the livestock have all been slaughtered, the people are dying of thirst. How can there be any extra water for the livestock to drink? Are there no wells in the city? Akatsuki asked. There are a few wells, but they are all dry, not a drop of water can be drawn up, only sand. The woman sighed and said, Then why are you still here, why don't you leave? Akatsuki continued to ask, Leave? How do we leave? The woman replied to Akatsuki, This place is surrounded by desert soil, if we don't bring enough water, we can't walk out at all, we will die of thirst halfway, rather than that, it is better to stay in the city. Akatsuki nodded. Without enough water, walking in the desert was tantamount to suicide. Where are the wells in the city? Yi Fan asked the woman. There is one in the center of the city, and the remaining 4 wells are in the 4 corners of the city. The woman replied. Hongji, you and Xiao Zhao stay here with Miss Dong, I will be back soon. Yi Fan said and stood up directly. Where are you going? Akatsuki saw Yi Fan suddenly leaving, immediately got up from her seat and asked in a hurry. I'm going to open up those few wells. You guys wait for me here. I'll be back soon, Yi Fan said and disappeared with a swoosh. If it rains, the people in this Tuching city will die of thirst in a few days. The so-called saving a life is better than building a 7-floor pagoda. While waiting for the scorpion essence, he first solved the problem of drinking water here, once and for all. The woman was shocked by the scene in front of her, instinctively stood up and took a few steps back. If she didn't know that Yi Fan was a good person, she would have screamed. It's okay, don't be afraid. Akatsuki comforted the woman. He is going to dig a well for you. The people here don't have to worry about not having water to drink in the future. Dig a well? The woman's eyes widened in a short while. Yi Fan's figure appeared out of thin air next to the well in the center of the city. The well was made of bluestone, and the edges were very smooth. At first glance, one could tell that it was an old well that had existed for many years. He walked to the well and looked down. The mouth of the well was very narrow, about 3 feet wide, but it was very deep, about 70 to 80 feet. Just as the woman said, there was nothing at the bottom of the well except for sand. Yi Fan activated his body movement, and slowly floated 5 feet above the ground, hovering above the dry well. At the same time, he began to activate the ice core in his body again. Buzz! Yi Fan's right hand was blazing with white light, and the cold air was biting cold. After the cold air condensed, Yi Fan hit the dry well below with his palm across the air. Whoosh! A huge icicle, about a foot thick, shot out from Yi Fan's hand, and went straight to the bottom of the well. Bang! The huge, steel-like icicle instantly pierced into the bottom of the well. He wanted to use the icicle to penetrate deep into the water vein, so that the dry well would be filled with water again. At the same time that he released the icicle, Yi Fan activated his spirit energy, and the icicle began to spin at high speed. Rumble! The huge icicle made a loud rumbling sound, and it spun down at high speed. Phew! The cold air in Yi Fan's palm continued to expand the icicle. In less than 10 minutes, Yi Fan had released more than 300 feet of icicle. Thinking that it should be deep enough, Yi Fan stopped releasing the cold air. He flipped his palm and suddenly hit the icicle. Bang! A loud sound was heard, and the entire icicle instantly turned into ice shards. Gulp, gulp! A dull gulping sound came from deep underground. Boom! A huge water column shot out from the bottom of the well, and it shot out of the well. Whoosh! At the moment when the water column shot out of the well, Yi Fan's figure flashed, and he retreated 3 feet away. Yi Fan smiled as he looked at the sparkling and translucent water pillar mixed with ice shards. In the future, the people of this earthen city would not have to worry about water. Whoosh! Chapter 783. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Yi Fan had already connected all 5 of the wells in this earthen city. Each of the 5 wells was over 300 feet deep into the ground, and the water was sweet and refreshing like a gushing spring. There's water! Yi Fan cupped his hands around his mouth and roared into the sky. After shouting, Yi Fan tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and leaped into the air. He landed on top of an abandoned earthen building not far away. Yi Fan's voice was imbued with spiritual power, and it was extremely loud, and it instantly spread throughout the entire earthen city. Moments later, a large number of people flocked toward the earthen building from all directions. When they saw a large amount of water gushing out from the dried-up wells, the crowd went crazy. Everyone scrambled to hold the water in their hands and gulped it down. There's water! We have water, ha ha ha! We're not going to die, we're not going to die! People yelled into the sky excitedly as they allowed the gushing water to drench their bodies. There's water in the other wells as well. There's water in all of them. A few people who had rushed over from other wells yelled in unison. The crowd erupted into an uproar again. May the heavens bless us! May the heavens bless us! A white-haired old man knelt to the ground and kowtowed to the heavens piously. In his eyes, the fact that 5 wells were gushing out sweet water at the same time was a blessing from the heavens to his people. Yi Fan looked down at the raucous crowd below with a faint smile on his face. He then turned around and leaped down from the earthen building before slowly making his way toward the woman's residence. He did not care if the people here knew the truth or not, nor did he care if he would be praised and left behind in history. To him, as long as he could do something for the people with his cultivation, he was already very happy. As for the rest, he did not care at all. When he returned to the earthen building where the woman was staying, Akatsuki was rolling up her sleeves and helping the woman carry ice cubes into the house. Upon seeing Yi Fan return, Akatsuki put down her work and asked, "Is everything done?" "Yes," Yi Fan replied. "From now on, there will be no shortage of water here, and we will no longer depend on the weather for food." The woman walked out of the house and said to Yi Fan with a smile, "Benefactor, you have helped the common people. In the future, you will definitely have many children and live a long life. I hope so. Yi Fan smiled. He rolled up his sleeves and began to help move the ice. Mister, you are kind and benevolent. You help the people and don't seek merit or profit. You are truly admirable. Just as Yi Fan was helping to move the ice buckets, a man's voice sounded from outside the door. Yi Fan put down the ice bucket in his hand and turned around. He sensed that the person outside the door had an extremely dense spirit chi and an earthy aura. There were also traces of poisonous gas mixed in with the earthy gas. Clearly, the person outside was the scorpion spirit. Moreover, this scorpion spirit was a poisonous scorpion with profound spirit energy. I have been waiting for Mr. Xie for a long time. Please come in, Yi Fan said in a clear voice. This Xie is ugly and the poisonous gas in my body has not dissipated yet. I do not dare to enter a private residence, so I ask for Mr.'s understanding. We will meet outside the door. The voice outside the door sounded again. After Yi Fan heard this, he slowly nodded. Hongji, you and Xiao Zhao accompany Miss Dong upstairs. I will go out and take a look. Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. Okay. Akatsuki nodded and pulled the stunned woman upstairs. She had already guessed that the person outside the door was the scorpion spirit. Most scorpions were poisonous. The slightly poisonous scorpion venom could paralyze a person or cause unbearable pain. The more poisonous scorpion venom could cause a person's organs to fail and instantly die. The person outside the door was a scorpion spirit that had cultivated for 800 to 900 years. One could imagine how poisonous it was. The woman surnamed Dong was also confused at this time. She did not know how ugly the person outside the door was. He did not even dare to enter the door. Yi Fan tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and lightly leaped, flying over the wall. There was a man standing outside the door. The man was wearing a dark brown robe, dark brown cloth boots, and dark brown glove. Even his head was wrapped tightly with a dark brown scarf, only revealing a pair of sharp eyes. The skin that was exposed next to his eyes was purplish-brown, looking very scary. Yi Fan finally knew why the scorpion spirit said that he was ugly. To be honest, this guy was so scary only revealing his eyes. If he removed the scarf and showed his true face, anyone who saw him would be scared out of their wits and avoid him. In addition, this person's body was covered in a faint purplish-brown mist. The fog was faint and did not dissipate from the man's body for a long time. Yi Fan understood that this purplish-brown fog was the poisonous gas that the scorpion spirit said had not dissipated completely. However, Yi Fan did not feel uncomfortable at all. He had seen Inchan Daxiong's disgusting appearance before, not to mention the scorpion spirit in front of him. Zijing greets Mr. Eldritch. The scorpion spirit bowed to Yi Fan and said in a respectful tone, Brother Zijing is too polite. Yi Fan helped the scorpion spirit up and said, I'll have to trouble Brother Zijing this time. Sir, what are you saying? The scorpion spirit looked up at Yi Fan and said, It's my honor to be able to serve Mr. Eldritch. I'm no longer the Eldritch of the past. Brother Zijing, you don't have to be so polite. Yi Fan smiled faintly and said, Ha ha, Eldritch is Eldritch. Even if he reincarnates thousands of times, he will still be Eldritch, the scorpion spirit said with a smile. Yi Fan smiled and did not say anything. I heard from Brother Wu that you want to find the volcano with the powerful boundary that we encountered back then? The scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan. That's right, Yi Fan replied. Is the thing inside the boundary really the divine cauldron? The scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan with bright eyes. Why? Brother Zijing is also interested in the divine cauldron? Yi Fan asked the scorpion spirit half jokingly and half seriously. The scorpion spirit was stunned at first, then laughed. Ha ha! Sir, you misunderstand me, the scorpion spirit said to Yi Fan with a smile. I like to collect rare treasures, but I don't dare to have any improper thoughts about the divine cauldron. Such a divine item is not something someone like me can touch. To be honest, I would be satisfied if I could see the divine cauldron. Yi Fan smiled after hearing this. This scorpion spirit was just as the centipede spirit had said. He liked rare treasures and rare treasures. Where is that volcano? Yi Fan changed the topic and asked the scorpion spirit. About 800 kilometers west of here, there is an active volcano called the Spirit Flame Mountain. The boundary is inside the volcano, but... The scorpion spirit stopped. But what? Yi Fan asked. Sir, do you know why the volcano is called the Spirit Flame Mountain? The scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan. Why? Yi Fan asked. Because the flames in the volcano can penetrate spirit energy, so the demon realm named the mountain the Spirit Flame Mountain, the scorpion spirit said. Back then, Brother Wu and I attacked the boundary directly above the volcano. As a result, the power was reflected, and the magma that gushed out penetrated our protective spirit energy. We almost died there. It can penetrate spirit energy? Yi Fan frowned after hearing this. One had to know that what he was most proud of was his spirit chi cultivation. He did not know if the magma of the volcano could penetrate his spirit energy. Not only that, but the temperature of the volcano is also very high. I wonder if Sir can enter it? The scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan. If they wanted to find the divine cauldron in the volcano's boundary, they had to enter the volcano's magma through the mouth of the volcano and go all the way down. The scorpion spirit knew that Yi Fan had survived the heavenly tribulation during the demon-slaying conference, but he did not know if Yi Fan could deal with the magma in the Spirit Flame Mountain. Whether I can go in or not, we'll know when we get there. After pondering for a long time, Yi Fan said to the scorpion spirit, Brother Zijing, please lead the way to the Spirit Flame Mountain. I'm at your service. Sir, please come with me. As the scorpion spirit spoke, he flicked his sleeves and instantly turned into a breeze. He rushed straight into the sky and whistled toward the west. Hongji, take care of Xiao Zhao and Miss Dong. I'm going to the Spirit Flame Mountain. Yi Fan first mixed his voice with the spirit energy, and then the spirit energy flew into Akatsuki's ears in the earthen building. After saying that, Yi Fan's body flashed and disappeared from his original spot. Whoosh! A group of auspicious clouds appeared out of thin air and followed the scorpion spirit at lightning speed. Yi Fan Kun. Yi. Akatsuki opened the window of the earthen building and poked her head out. She was about to warn Yi Fan to be careful. However, Yi Fan's movement was too fast. Before Akatsuki could finish her words, Yi Fan's auspicious clouds had gradually disappeared. Phew! Akatsuki exhaled heavily and closed the window again. High in the sky, the scorpion spirit and Yi Fan were flying at high speed. Although the scorpion spirit was ugly, its movement was really good. The breeze it turned into was not slower than Yi Fan's auspicious clouds. It was as fast as lightning. Yi Fan urged the auspicious clouds and followed closely behind. He did not show off his excellent movement to the scorpion spirit, nor did he surpass it. Instead, he kept a distance of about 10 meters from the scorpion spirit. The two did not talk much and focused on hurrying. In less than half an incense stick's time, a gigantic volcano appeared in Yi Fan's line of sight. This volcano was nearly 100 meters high and was reddish-yellow in color. It was extremely huge. As the centipede spirit said before, within a radius of more than 10 miles around this volcano, there was a piece of dry stone and no grass. A lot of heat emitted from the volcano's crater distorted the surrounding scenery. At this time, although Yi Fan was high in the sky, he could already feel the blazing heat below. Whoosh! The scorpion spirit, who was flying in the air at the front, instantly revealed its human body. Sir, the volcano below us is the Spiritual Flame Mountain. The scorpion spirit slowly stopped and turned its head to Yi Fan and said, This Spiritual Flame Mountain is really hot. It lives up to its name. Yi Fan put away the auspicious clouds and looked at the volcano below as he spoke. I can only send you here. The scorpion spirit turned its head to Yi Fan and said, If we go further, we will be directly above the crater. This volcano is very unstable. It's hard to say when it will erupt. We should be careful. Brother Zijing, wait for me here. I'll go check it out. Yi Fan said and urged the auspicious clouds to slowly float forward. Sir, be careful. The scorpion spirit warned Yi Fan. Yi Fan, who was far away, waved his hand as a reply. Chapter 784. After arriving at the top of the volcano, Yi Fan held his breath to prevent a large amount of volcanic dust from being sucked into his body. At the same time, he activated his demonic eye and looked down at the volcano. Whoosh! 2 red beams of light shot out from Yi Fan's eyes and headed straight for the mouth of the volcano. Gurgle! Gurgle! Inside the huge volcano, the fiery red magma was surging crazily, and there were a lot of bubbles. It was like a boiling pot. What a powerful heat! After seeing this scene, Yi Fan frowned secretly. He had been to the sky, the sea, the extreme north, the Night Demon Peak, the desert, and the Demon Island. He had experienced all kinds of harsh environments, but he had never entered a volcano before. Moreover, it was the spiritual flame mountain that had the ability to penetrate spiritual energy. Whoosh! As Yi Fan was thinking of a way to enter the volcano, the auspicious clouds under his feet suddenly started to dissipate at a speed visible to the naked eye. The heat released by the volcano was too strong. The auspicious clouds, which were made up of a large amount of water vapor, couldn't withstand such a powerful heat and started to dry up gradually. When Yi Fan saw the situation, he immediately channeled his spirit chi to support himself. Whoosh! After losing Yi Fan's telekinesis, the auspicious clouds instantly disappeared without a trace. After thinking about it, Yi Fan decided to test whether his spiritual energy could withstand the fiery magma in the spiritual flame mountain. Buzz! Yi Fan activated the powerful spiritual energy of the mysterious sky secret technique in his body and gathered a 7-inch 5-colored ball of spiritual energy in his palm. The 5-colored ball of light was intertwined, and it was overflowing with colorful lights. After the ball of spiritual energy was condensed, Yi Fan pushed the 5-colored ball of spiritual energy toward the volcano below. Whoosh! The 5-colored ball of light went through the thick smoke of the volcano and rushed directly into the volcano. Boom! Following a loud explosion, 3 gigantic fireballs shot out from the volcano's crater with long trails of flames trailing behind them. They were heading straight for Yi Fan at high speed. Each of the fireballs was 9 feet in size. Blazing flames rose and radiated heat in all directions. The tail of the fireballs was more than 3 zhang long. They were like 3 meteors. The speed of the fireball was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it had reached a distance of less than 100 feet away from Yi Fan. Before the fireball arrived, the heat arrived first. The blazing flames illuminated Yi Fan's furrowed brows. Sir, be careful. Seeing that Yi Fan was in danger, the scorpion spirit floating in the distant sky immediately shouted to warn Yi Fan. Back then, he and the centipede spirit didn't know each other's strength, which led to the rebound of their strength and almost lost their lives. When he saw the 3 fireballs coming at him at high speed, Yi Fan immediately took action to counter them. Although the 3 fireballs were coming at him menacingly, he was already mentally prepared. He extended his right hand into the air, and at the same time, his mind moved. Buzz! A white light flashed in his palm, and a dazzling silver sword appeared in his hand. The light of the long sword shone in all directions, and the cold air exploded, sparkling brilliantly. Frost! Frost Dragon's sword. After seeing the divine weapon in Yi Fan's hand, the scorpion spirit's pupils constricted, and he exclaimed in shock. He loved to collect spiritual items and rare treasures the most, and he was very familiar with the most valuable treasures in the world. Naturally, he knew about the Frost Dragon sword. He didn't expect that such a peerless divine weapon would be in Eldritch's hands. With such a divine weapon in hand, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to enter the blazing magma of the spiritual flame mountain. It was really the will of the heavens. The scorpion spirit nodded slowly. It was the will of the heavens for the divine cauldron to fall into Eldritch's hands. Swoosh! Yi Fan, who was holding the Frost Dragon sword in his hand, shook and swung it in the air. The speed of the sword was so fast that a dazzling light screen appeared in front of Yi Fan out of thin air. Swoosh! A dazzling white light, extremely dazzling cold air sword arc, was swung out from the Frost Dragon's sword. Swoosh! 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 As three crisp sounds rang out, the three gigantic fireballs were instantly sliced in half by the Frost Dragon sword's extremely cold sword light. Crack! 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 The three fireballs that had lost their power turned into 6 semicircular ice lumps and scattered down, falling into the magma of the volcano. A few streaks of water vapor rose from the magma and instantly dissipated. What a powerful divine weapon! What a fast sword technique! Seeing that Yi Fan had turned the danger into nothingness in the blink of an eye, the scorpion spirit couldn't help but secretly praise him. This person was indeed the reincarnation of Eldritch. He was indeed the monarch of the devil world who had survived the heavenly tribulation. His cultivation was so high that it was already beyond his imagination. As the saying goes, a treasured sword matches a hero. The Frost Dragon sword in his hands was the most suitable. Next, he didn't even need to guess. Yi Fan would definitely use the cold air on the Frost Dragon sword to envelop his entire body, and then enter the volcano to find the divine cauldron. If it was anyone else, they would have done the same. However, he was wrong. Yi Fan didn't continue to use the Frost Dragon sword. If it was an ordinary volcano, he could consider using the cold air on the Frost Dragon sword. However, this was the Spirit Flames Mountain, and the flames could directly pierce through spiritual energy. Although the Frost Dragon's cold air was extremely strong, it was still sealed. Moreover, the cold air of the Frost Dragon was also released by its spiritual energy. Yi Fan was worried that the flames in the volcano would hurt the Frost Dragon. He couldn't let the Frost Dragon take this risk, so he withdrew the Frost Dragon sword. Buzz! The Frost Dragon's sword flashed in his hand and disappeared into thin air. After thinking for a moment, Yi Fan took out the Yin-Yang Ghost Seal. He stared at the fire kirin above the Yin-Yang Ghost Seal and began to use his psychic power to awaken the fire kirin. With a thought from Yi Fan, the black jade fire kirin lying on the Yin-Yang Ghost Seal instantly opened its eyes. Buzz! 2 red lights shot out from the fire kirin's eyes. At the same time, the fire kirin slowly stood up. Ting! The standing fire kirin's body instantly ignited, and its 4 hooves were covered in flames. It shook its majestic dragon head and the rustling scales on its body. Then, it raised its head and looked at Yi Fan. Yin-Yang Ghost Seal. Fire kirin. The scorpion spirit was deeply shocked by the scene before its eyes. Gui Guzi's Yin-Yang Ghost Seal was also in Eldritch's hands. What shocked it even more was that the fire kirin on the Yin-Yang Ghost Seal had already recognized Yi Fan as its master. Fire kirin, there's something I need your help with, Yi Fan said to the fire kirin in his palm. Phew! The fire kirin's eyes lit up when it heard Yi Fan's words, and 2 streams of flames shot out from its nostrils. Can you freely travel through the lava and flames below? Yi Fan asked the fire kirin. The ice dragon's cold air and flames were mutually reinforcing and counteracting. The fire kirin was a fire-type spirit beast that could resist fire, and it was subordinate to the flames. Because of this, Yi Fan thought of using the fire kirin to resist the flames of the Spirit Flame Mountain. The fire kirin immediately lowered its head and looked down when it heard Yi Fan's question. The fire kirin narrowed its eyes when it saw the surging lava in the volcano below. It was a fire-type spirit beast, so it could obviously see that the flames below were not ordinary. "How is it? Can you do it?" Yifan asked. The fire Kirin raised its head and looked at Yifan. Then, it jumped down from the yin-yang ghost seal. Buzz, as it jumped down from the yin-yang ghost seal, the palm-sized fire Kirin instantly grew in size. In the blink of an eye, a real Kirin that was more than 3 meters tall and more than 3 meters long appeared in front of Yifan. The fire Kirin had a dragon's head and antlers, a lion's eyes, a tiger's back, a bear's waist, a snake's scales, and a horse's hooves and an ox's tail. Countless fiery flames rose from its scales, and it looked extremely domineering. The fire Kirin stepped on the flames and stretched its body. The scales on its body clattered loudly. "Fire Kirin, show yourself," the scorpion spirit muttered to itself with a shocked expression. The fire Kirin heard the scorpion spirit's voice and instantly turned its dragon's head to stare at the scorpion spirit. Roar! The fire Kirin let out an extremely high-frequency roar and narrowed its eyes. It had already seen through the scorpion spirit's true form. The scorpion spirit felt extremely uncomfortable after being stared at by the fire Kirin. It even felt like it was unable to move. It was only a scorpion, while the fire Kirin was an ancient spiritual beast. Although the two of them were both spiritual beasts, the difference in their cultivation levels was like heaven and earth. The scorpion spirit's meager cultivation level was nothing in the eyes of the fire Kirin. The fire Kirin was a spiritual beast that could intimidate demons and ghosts. Of course, the scorpion spirit would feel uncomfortable. He was nearly suffocated by the fire Qilin's vigorous and overbearing spiritual pressure. "Sir," the scorpion spirit said to Yifan anxiously when it saw that the fire Kirin seemed to be hostile toward it. "Fire Kirin, don't mess around. He's my friend," Yifan said to the fire Kirin. The fire Kirin turned to look at Yifan, then turned to look at the scorpion spirit. Its gaze immediately became gentle and no longer showed any hostility. "Fire Kirin, can you pass through the lava and flames below?" Yifan asked the fire Kirin. The fire Kirin walked straight to Yifan and squatted down. It shook its huge dragon head and turned to look at its back, then looked at Yifan. "You want me to ride it?" Yifan understood the fire Kirin's meaning and asked. The fire Kirin nodded. You want to take me into the Spirit Flame Mountain?" Yifan asked again. The fire Kirin nodded again. Yifan was overjoyed when he saw the fire Kirin nod. His deduction wasn't wrong. The fire Kirin could really take him into the Spirit Flame Mountain and pass through the lava and flames. "All right, fire Kirin, I won't hold back then." As Yifan spoke, he tapped the air with the tip of his foot and flew up. He straddled the fire Kirin's broad back. What surprised Yifan was that although the fire Kirin was surrounded by flames, he didn't feel any heat at all. He didn't understand. The fire Kirin was a divine beast that could control fire. It was the spirit of fire and could control all the flames in the world. It could even control the flames outside, not to mention the flames on its body. The fire Kirin slowly stood up when it saw Yifan riding on it. Ting, as it stood up, the flames on the fire Kirin's body instantly expanded by 30 feet. Raging flames soared into the sky and completely enveloped Yifan, who was riding on the fire Qilin's back. At that moment, the fire Kirin's body was fiery red and dazzling. It was even redder than the raging lava in the Spirit Flame Mountain below. Yifan turned around and said to the scorpion demon, "Brother Zijing, please wait here for a while. I'll be back soon." The scorpion demon cupped its hands and said to Yifan, "Sir, please be careful. I'll be waiting for your successful return." Yifan turned around and said to the fire Kirin, "Let's go." Roar! The fire Kirin raised its head and roared at the sky. Its roar reached the heavens. Whoosh! After roaring, the fire Qilin stepped into the air and ran toward the crater of the volcano at high speed. Chapter 785. Roar. The rapidly descending fire Kirin let out an angry roar. Whoosh, following the fire Kirin's earth-shattering roar, the surging lava in the volcanic crater below instantly began to swirl rapidly, forming a huge vortex. The vortex was bottomless, and it led directly to the depths of the underground. Whoosh, the descending fire Kirin's 4 hooves stomped on the flames as it charged straight into the vortex. Whoosh, the vortex instantly closed. What a good fire-taming spirit beast! Seeing that the fire Kirin could control the lava to form a passageway, the scorpion spirit hovering in the air couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. With the help of this spirit beast, one could travel anywhere in the world and walk through fire as if it were flat ground. How good would it be if it could have such a spirit beast by its side? The scorpion spirit shook its head with a bitter smile as it envied the scorpion spirit. With a flick of its sleeves, it transformed into a breeze and landed at the foot of the mountain. Within the surging magma, the fire Qilin carried Yi Fan on its back as it moved down the magma tunnel without slowing down at all. Whoosh, wherever the fire Kirin passed, all the lava automatically formed a passageway and rapidly retreated. The fire Kirin's fire-taming ability greatly surprised Yi Fan, who was lying on its back. Before charging into the lava, he had secretly gathered the frost energy from the ice core in his hand as a precaution. Now, it seemed that he had underestimated the fire Kirin's abilities. The man and the Kirin were extremely fast, and in a short while, they had traveled more than 5 kilometers. The deeper they went, the thicker the lava in the volcanic crater became, and the redder the color became. Although Yi Fan was inside the fire Kirin's spiritual pressure flames and couldn't feel the temperature of the outside world, he could see that the temperature of the lava was extremely high. It was several times higher than the temperature at the volcanic crater. Fire Kirin, there will be an extremely powerful barrier in front of us. You have to be careful and don't try to be brave, Yi Fan, who was holding the huge dragon horn of the fire Kirin tightly, warned the fire Kirin. Yi Fan, who had already obtained the 5 cauldron patterns, was well aware of how powerful the divine cauldron barrier was. The fire Kirin was as fast as the wind and lightning. It was easy for it to bump into the divine cauldron barrier. The only thing he was worried about was that the fire Kirin would get hurt. The fire Qilin let out a low roar as a response to Yi Fan. After the time it took to finish a cup of tea, the man and the Qilin had traveled close to 5 kilometers. At this time, the fire Kirin gradually slowed down. It narrowed its fiery eyes, and its expression became vigilant. At the same time, Yi Fan, who was on the Kirin's back, also felt something strange. He could feel a powerful force rapidly condensing in the lava 1,000 feet in front of him. Fire Kirin, watch out! Yi Fan, whose 5 senses were abnormal, sensed the impending danger. He immediately said to the fire Kirin. Whoosh! Just as Yi Fan finished speaking, a huge lava fireball shot out from the whirlpool passage in front of them, heading toward them at high speed. The lava fireball was extremely huge, with a diameter of 30 feet. It filled the entire passage in an instant. As a result, Yi Fan and the fire Kirin, who were rushing downward, had nowhere to run. Seeing this, Yi Fan did not dare to delay. He immediately prepared to use the frost dragon sword again. However, at this moment, the fire Kirin under Yi Fan began to attack. It raised its head and opened its huge mouth. Buzz, an equally huge fireball instantly formed in its mouth. The fireball was 3 feet in size. It was bright and fiery. It kept spinning in its mouth and was getting bigger and bigger. The fire Kirin wanted to use fire to put out fire. Yi Fan, who was lying on the fire Kirin's back, suddenly understood. Good, since fire attacks were effective, then he would help. He had the fire snake's Dragon Ball in his body. He could also create a powerful fireball. Yi Fan crossed his arms in front of his chest, palms facing each other. At the same time, he began to activate the fire snake's Dragon Ball in his energy reserve. Buzz, the huge fireball quickly condensed in Yi Fan's hands. At this moment, the lava fireball was less than 30 feet away from them and was rapidly approaching. "Fire Kirin, let's go," Yi Fan said. He pushed his palms forward and quickly shot out the 9-foot-long fireball. The Fire Kirin understood tacitly. It lowered its head and exerted force in its mouth. It also shot out a 1-foot-long fireball. Whoosh, the 2 large fireballs spun and shot out at the same time, heading straight for the incoming magma fireball. Boom, a loud sound was heard. Red light shot out in all directions and flames splashed everywhere. The Fire Snake's Dragon Ball, the Fire Kirin's flames, and the volcanic lava. The 3 powerful forces collided in an instant. The Fire Snake's Dragon Ball was the condensation of the Fire Snake's spiritual power for thousands of years. The Fire Snake was also one of the spiritual beasts of heaven and earth. Its blazing fire pill was extremely powerful and rare. The Fire Kirin was even more so. If the Fire Snake was a spiritual beast of heaven and earth, then the Fire Kirin was a spiritual beast of heaven. Its combat power and cultivation were well known throughout the world. When the 2 spiritual beasts combined their powers, the lava fireball was naturally no match for them. Under the bombardment of the 2 spiritual beasts, the lava fireball was instantly scattered and turned into nothingness. Yi Fan was overjoyed when he saw this. Although his spiritual chi could not do anything in this volcano, the Fire Snake's Dragon Ball could unleash its power. Roar! The Fire Kirin roared, as if it was not satisfied with its previous attack. For thousands of years, it had been guarding the Yin-Yang Ghost Seal and was almost bored out of its wit. Now that it could run around and show off its skills, of course it was excited. However, to the Fire Kirin's disappointment, after the lava fireball was scattered, they did not encounter any other attacks. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. After charging downwards for 3 to 4 miles, Yi Fan patted the Fire Kirin below him, indicating for it to stop. He had already sensed that the powerful barrier was not far ahead. The Fire Kirin slowly retracted its 4 flaming hooves and came to a stop. Yi Fan flipped down from the Fire Kirin. At the same time, he activated his spiritual power and suspended his body in the middle of the whirlpool passage. Fire Kirin, wait for me here and make sure that the lava passage is unobstructed. I'll go down and take a look. Yi Fan patted the Fire Kirin's huge dragon head and said, I'll break the barrier in front of us in a moment. There might be a torrent of lava, so you have to be careful. Phew! The Fire Kirin breathed out a few mouthfuls of flames and nodded. Yi Fan moved his body and slowly floated downwards. At this moment, he drew out the Frost Dragon sword and held it in his right hand. At the same time, he gathered the frost energy from the ice core in his left hand, just in case. With the Frost Dragon sword and the ice core, as well as the 8-treasure jade embroidered robe that was impervious to weapons, water, and fire, he should be fine. Yi Fan thought to himself as he floated downward. After a short while, Yi Fan came to a stop. In front of him, a huge green door blocked his path. The door was about 7 feet tall and 3 feet wide. It was extremely huge. The material that made up this green door was neither copper nor iron. Instead, it was completely made up of green flames. Seeing this, Yi Fan frowned. As someone who was familiar with forging weapons, he was very familiar with this green flame. As the saying goes, the highest temperature of a flame is not a fiery red, but a cyan color. The purer the green, the higher the temperature. The green flame door in front of him glowed with green light. One could imagine how high the temperature was. At this moment, he was unable to use his spiritual power to open this green flame door. First of all, this flame door did not have a physical body, so it could be said that there was no point for him to exert force on. Second of all, if he used his spiritual power to attack the door, it was very likely that he would be bounced back. It was not worth it. Right now, there was only one way. That was to use the frost energy to completely envelop himself and then pass through the green flame door. If he guessed correctly, the revered god cauldron was behind this green flame door. After making up his mind, Yi Fan calmed himself down. He lowered his eyes and began to activate the ice core in his body and the frost dragon sword in his hand at the same time. Buzz, the frost dragon's sword let out a crisp sound. Then, a white light burst out and the frost energy rose sharply. The sudden burst of frost energy flowed along Yi Fan's right arm and instantly enveloped Yi Fan. At the same time, the ice core in Yi Fan's chi began to release frost energy crazily. In the blink of an eye, a dazzling white ice ball appeared around Yi Fan and enveloped him. The ice ball was 1 zhang in size and 7 feet in thickness. It was crystal clear and dazzling. Frost energy overflowed from it and it was as hard as steel. Hopefully, his protective ice ball would be able to withstand the heat of the azure flame gate. Yi Fan thought to himself as he stood in the middle of the ice ball that was 3 feet in size. As he thought, he activated the huge ice ball and slowly flew toward the green flame door. The ice ball was less than an inch away from the green flame door. Steam began to rise from the front of the ice ball and it sizzled. Yi Fan activated the ice core and the frost energy on the frost dragon's sword to replenish the lost frost energy and continued forward. Following the large amount of water vapor, Yi Fan's ice ball began to enter the green flame door. The ice ball melted at an extremely fast speed. However, Yi Fan's frost energy was not inferior. He maintained the same thickness of the ice ball. Whoosh! The green flame on the door started to turn red under Yi Fan's domineering frost energy. Its temperature was rapidly decreasing. Just like that, Yi Fan's ice ball successfully passed through the green flame door. After entering the green flame door, Yi Fan did not withdraw the ice ball. Instead, he looked around through the ice ball. The world behind the flame door was completely different from the world filled with lava outside. There was not a single trace of flame here. There was not a single drop of lava. It was just a huge stone room that could not be any more ordinary. In the middle of the stone room, a huge bronze cauldron stood there. It was exquisite and ancient, as if it was made by nature. Around the divine cauldron, there was a huge green energy barrier. Green energy flowed around the energy barrier. It trembled and appeared indistinct. It was the divine cauldron. Yi Fan was overjoyed. He withdrew the frost energy from the ice ball and put away the frost dragon sword in his hand. He then slowly landed on the ground and carefully observed the huge energy barrier around the divine cauldron. It was obvious that this energy barrier was the boundary of the divine cauldron. Yi Fan slowly walked forward and extended his hand to touch the energy barrier. The energy barrier was as hard as steel. It was extremely flexible. Yi Fan's anxious heart finally calmed down when he saw this. As long as there was a point of contact, he would be able to break the barrier. Cauldron spirit above, Disciple Bufan needs to collect all the patterns on the 9 divine cauldrons in order to save my wife's soul from suffering. I have no choice but to come here abruptly. I hope that cauldron spirit will forgive this disciple for his lack of manners, said Yi Fan respectfully to the divine cauldron. Buzz. Chapter 786. Seeing that the divine cauldron had responded, Yi Fan revealed a joyous expression and started to circulate his spirit chi. For safety reasons, Yi Fan didn't use the Xiantian secret essence's spirit chi. Instead, he activated the heavenly demon's power. After all, the heavenly demon's devil spirit was in his primordial spirit and not his sea of chi. The flames in the spirit flame mountain might be able to penetrate the physical spirit chi, but it shouldn't have any effect on the primordial spirit's power. Buzz, following Yi Fan's thought, red light burst out from his body, and the devil spirit blazed. Buzz, the swastika on Yi Fan's forehead appeared again, and the red light was as bright as blood. At this moment, Yi Fan's black robes fluttered without wind, and his silver hair soared into the sky. Within the soaring flames, Yi Fan took a step forward, and at the same time, he struck his palm towards the divine cauldron's barrier. Boom! A loud sound rang out, and golden light splattered in all directions. Within the stone chamber, waves of air surged, and the sound echoed endlessly. Under the bombardment of Yi Fan's heavenly demon's power, the translucent divine cauldron's barrier instantly turned into countless sparkling and translucent fragments and scattered. The sixth divine cauldron's barrier was also broken by Yi Fan. Seeing that the barrier had been broken, Yi Fan immediately released 2 rays of red light from his eyes, which circled around the divine cauldron and scanned it. Under the gaze of his blood-red devil eyes, countless golden patterns slowly flew out from the divine cauldron's body. They followed the 2 red pillars of light that shot out from Yi Fan's eyes and slowly flew into Yi Fan's mind. At the foot of the volcano, the Scorpion Spirit General, who was wearing a dark brown robe and a dark brown scarf, stood on a huge volcanic rock. From time to time, he would raise his head to look at the gigantic volcano with a solemn expression. Yi Fan and the Fire Kirin had already entered the Spirit Flame Mountain for more than an hour, and he didn't know how they were doing now. The violent shaking of the volcano just now made him a little worried. He knew that the loud sound meant that Yi Fan had already found the Divine Cauldron and was attacking the Divine Cauldron's barrier. As for the outcome, he had no idea. All he could do now was wait for Yi Fan. There was nothing else he could do. Boom! Just as the Scorpion Spirit was waiting, a loud sound came from above. He quickly shaded his eyes with his hands and looked up. With a glance, the Scorpion Demon was overjoyed. As a surge of lava and flames spewed out from the crater, Yi Fan, who was riding on the Fire Kirin, charged out of the lava at high speed and soared into the air. "Mr. Eldritch!" the Scorpion Spirit shouted excitedly. Obviously, Yi Fan had successfully broken through the Divine Cauldron barrier. On the Fire Kirin, Yi Fan smiled. He gently turned the Fire Kirin's huge dragon horn and rode the Fire Kirin to land in front of the Scorpion Spirit. "Sir, congratulations on obtaining the Divine Cauldron again." The Scorpion Spirit cupped his hands and smiled at Yi Fan. "Brother Zijing, why are you so sure that I've obtained the Divine Cauldron?" Yi Fan flipped down from the Fire Kirin and asked the Scorpion Spirit with a smile. "Sir, you have a smile on your face and you're full of joy. It's obvious that you've gotten what you wanted." The Scorpion Spirit smiled. Yi Fan smiled and patted the Fire Kirin. "Fire Kirin, there's no one around here. Go and have fun. Remember not to go too far or you'll scare others," Yi Fan said to the Fire Kirin. Ever since the Fire Qilin had followed Yi Fan, it had never been able to enjoy itself to its heart's content. Since it was rare for this place to be deserted and no one had set foot in it, Yi Fan decided to let the Fire Qilin move around. Upon hearing Yi Fan's words, the Fire Kirin's eyes widened in excitement. It stomped its 4 flaming hooves and was overjoyed. "Go on." Yi Fan smiled. Ting! The Fire Kirin leaped into the air and ran off like a gust of wind. They were in a volcanic area, so the heat was intense. It was just right for the nature of its spiritual energy. After Yi Fan watched the Fire Kirin leave, he turned to the Scorpion Spirit and said with a smile, "You guessed right. I've already obtained the pattern of the 6th Divine Cauldron. Sir, I'm relieved that you didn't make this trip in vain." The Scorpion Spirit smiled at Yi Fan. "Sir, you've already obtained 6 of the 9 cauldrons. This is the will of the heavens. I believe it won't be long before you'll be able to gather all 9 Divine Cauldrons patterns and save your wife's true soul." "Thank you for your auspicious words." Yi Fan smiled at the Scorpion Spirit. "I obtained the Divine Cauldron this time thanks to Brother Zijing's help. If I save Chico's true soul in the future, I'll invite Brother Zijing to my Lingyun cave for a drink. We'll get drunk then." "Sir, you're too kind," the Scorpion Spirit said to Yi Fan. "I'm just leading the way for you. I wouldn't dare to take any credit. If Brother Zijing didn't lead the way today, I wouldn't have been able to obtain the divine cauldron's patterns so smoothly, Yi Fan said. Brother Zijing has treated me with sincerity. I can't just leave like this. Wouldn't that be rude? Sir, you mean? The scorpion spirit didn't understand what Yi Fan meant. If Brother Zijing is willing, I'm willing to remove the poisonous gas from your body as a token of my gratitude, Yi Fan said as he looked at the scorpion spirit, who was shrouded in poisonous fog. Sir, you have a way to remove the poisonous gas from my body? After hearing Yi Fan's words, the scorpion spirit's eyes lit up and his heart skipped a beat. His original body was a deadly poisonous scorpion. Although he had cultivated for nearly 1,000 years, he still couldn't completely remove the poisonous gas from his body. This was because the poison glands in his body were naturally spread throughout his entire body, and there was no way to get rid of them. Even if he used his martial arts to force the poison out of his body, in just a few days, his body would secrete poison again, and the poison glands would be completely filled. Furthermore, the poison would be 30% more poisonous than before. It was also because of this that his skin was purplish-brown and his body was shrouded in poisonous fog. Therefore, even though he had taken human form, he didn't dare to walk around in the human world. With the poisonous gas in his body, ordinary people would die as long as they came within 10 feet of him. There was no cure. Back when he had gone to look for Yi Fan, he had also forcefully used his spiritual energy to suppress the poison aura around his body so that it would not spread. Otherwise, once the poison aura spread, it would definitely harm the innocent and he would have to bear a life debt. For hundreds of years, he had really put in a lot of effort because of this matter. He had flipped through medical books, found a large number of herbs, and practiced various detoxification methods, but it was still useless. Sometimes it even had the opposite effect. In desperation, he could only wrap himself tightly and live alone in a deserted cave. Except for a few close friends in the demon realm, he never had much contact with the human world. Most of his time was spent searching for treasures and sightseeing to relieve his loneliness. He was the only one who understood the bitterness in this situation the best. Now that he heard Yi Fan take the initiative to remove the poisonous gas in his body, he was of course excited. The person in front of him was not an ordinary person. He was the reincarnation of the famous Eldritch. In this life, he was the king of the demon realm who had passed the heavenly tribulation and had supreme cultivation. Since he dared to take the initiative to propose, he would definitely get it. What? Brother Zijing still wants to keep this thing? Yi Fan asked the scorpion spirit with a smile. You must be joking, sir, the scorpion spirit said to Yi Fan with a bitter smile. Sir, you don't know this, but the reason why I'm ugly and live alone in the mountains without daring to meet anyone is because of the poison in my body. If you can get rid of the poison in my body completely, I'm willing to follow you everywhere. As the scorpion spirit said this, he cupped his hands and bowed to Yi Fan. You and I are brothers. We feel like old friends at first sight. Why are you so polite? Yi Fan reached out to help the scorpion spirit up and said, I only need a moment to completely remove Brother Zijing's unspeakable illness, and it will never recur. Mister, please use your magic to save me, the scorpion spirit pleaded. Brother Zijing, please take off the scarf on your head first. I will remove the poisonous gas for you now and get rid of all future troubles, Yi Fan said to the scorpion spirit. When the scorpion spirit heard that Yi Fan wanted him to take off his scarf, he immediately felt embarrassed. I am afraid that I will scare Mister, to be honest, he did not want to see his own appearance. Ha ha ha! Yi Fan laughed heartily. No matter how ugly your appearance is, it is only on the surface. Why would you not dare to see others? Although Brother Zijing is a poisonous scorpion, you have a benevolent heart and a noble character. On the contrary, some handsome men and beautiful women in the world, Although they look like Pan and are as beautiful as Diao-chan, their hearts are like snakes and scorpions. They are sinister and vicious, even more vicious than evil spirits. From this, it can be seen that beauty and ugliness are ultimately just skin bags. Brother Zijing has cultivated for nearly 1,000 years. Mr. is right. I was being petty. The scorpion spirit nodded. As he spoke, he took off the dark brown scarf on his head, revealing his true appearance. His face was purplish-black, and his skin was extremely rough and bumpy. There were a few poisonous tumors all over his body, making him look extremely terrifying. Brother Zijing, please close your eyes, Yifan said calmly. The scorpion spirit slowly closed his eyes. Give me your hands, Yifan continued. The scorpion spirit extended his hands. Yifan took off the gloves on the scorpion spirit's hands and threw them aside. Just like the skin on his face, the scorpion spirit's hands were also bumpy and horrifying. Cha! Yifan stretched out his fingers and slashed across the scorpion spirit's wrists. Swoosh! 2 bloody marks immediately appeared on the scorpion spirit's wrist. Begin to circulate your spiritual energy and force out all the poisonous blood in your body, Yifan said to the scorpion spirit. But Mr. The scorpion spirit, whose eyes were tightly shut, was puzzled. He frowned and asked Yifan. All the blood in his body was poisonous. If he forced it all out of his body, he would die of blood loss. Just do as I say. Leave the rest to me, Yifan said calmly to the scorpion spirit. Yes. The scorpion spirit nodded and began to circulate his spiritual energy to force out the poisonous blood. Drip, drip, the purplish-black blood continued to drip down from the 2 wounds Yifan had made. It became faster and faster, and finally formed 2 pillars of blood. Chi chi chi, when the volcanic rocks on the ground came into contact with the scorpion spirit's blood, black smoke instantly rose. A large number of purplish-black bubbles quickly appeared, and then gradually melted into nothingness. Chapter 787. Under the urging of the spiritual power, the blood from the scorpion spirit's wrist flowed faster and faster. Soon, a deep pit was formed on the volcanic rock under his feet. After a few minutes, more than half of the poisonous blood in the scorpion spirit's body had been removed. The scorpion spirit's face started to turn pale, and his lips started to lose their color. Even his body started to sway. Although he had cultivated for nearly 1,000 years, he was still a body of flesh and blood. Without spiritual energy, he could still survive. However, without the circulation of blood, no matter what kind of creature it was, it would be impossible to survive. Seeing that the scorpion spirit's body was about to collapse, Yifan extended his sword finger and pointed at a few of the scorpion spirit's major acupuncture points. Pa, pa, pa. As a few red light spots lit up on the scorpion spirit's body, the scorpion spirit's body stopped shaking. Guard your primordial spirit. I'm going to start casting the spell for you, Yifan said to the scorpion spirit. The scorpion spirit held on and nodded slightly. Yifan extended his right index finger and slowly placed it an inch above the scorpion spirit's forehead. At the same time, he started to urge the power of the heavenly demon and the power of the blood demon. Whoosh! A blood-red light pillar shot out from Yifan's fingertip and instantly penetrated the scorpion spirit's forehead. The scorpion spirit's forehead suddenly glowed with a dazzling red light. The scorpion spirit groaned in pain and his face started to distort. I'm going to expel the poison and change your blood. It will hurt a little. Bear with it, Yifan said to the scorpion spirit as he continued to shoot out the red light from his fingertip. Mister, just focus on casting the spell. I can bear with it, the scorpion spirit, whose face was red due to the red light, said firmly. Yifan did not say anything else. He closed his eyes and focused on casting the spell. Whoosh! After the red light entered the scorpion spirit's forehead, it immediately spread through the scorpion spirit's meridians and blood vessels. Yi Fan's red light had two purposes. First, it was to get rid of the poison in the scorpion spirit's meridians and blood vessels. Second, it was to create new blood for the scorpion spirit. With such a big movement, the scorpion spirit would definitely feel pain. Countless strands of red light rapidly spread from top to bottom on the scorpion demon's body, as if a red light net had completely enveloped it. The scorpion spirit was sweating profusely. He endured the excruciating pain and gritted his teeth, not making a sound. As the red light completely occupied the scorpion spirit's meridians and blood vessels, the scorpion spirit's pain began to slowly disappear. At this moment, he only felt an indescribable, domineering heat circulating throughout his body. Not a single one of his 36,000 pores wasn't flowing freely. Whoosh, the purplish-black blood spurting out from his wrists began to change color. At first, it was purplish-black, then dark red, then bright red. When he saw that the volcanic rock under the scorpion demon's feet was no longer emitting black gas, Yi Fan stopped injecting the red light in his hand. Then, he brushed the wound on the scorpion demon's wrist. Yi Fan waved his hand, and the scorpion spirit's spurting blood stopped instantly. The wounds on his wrists also healed immediately. "You can open your eyes now," Yi Fan said to the scorpion spirit. The scorpion spirit slowly opened his eyes. The first thing he did when he opened his eyes was to check the changes in his body. With one look, the scorpion spirit's face immediately lit up. The purplish-black poisonous fog surrounding him had completely disappeared, but the color of his skin was still purplish-black. "Sir, the poison in my body," the scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan with a puzzled expression. "I've already changed your blood, Brother Zijing. At this moment, your flesh and blood are no longer poisonous," Yi Fan said to the scorpion spirit. "But sir, the color of my body," the scorpion spirit frowned and asked Yi Fan. "Brother Zijing, listen to me first," Yi Fan continued to say to the scorpion spirit. "Although the poison in your flesh and blood has been completely removed, there's still a place where the poison still exists." "What place?" the scorpion spirit asked, puzzled. "Inner core," Yi Fan replied. The scorpion spirit was stunned at first, then he frowned. "All the poison in Brother Zijing's body comes from the inner core. If the poison in the inner core is not removed, everything will be in vain," Yi Fan explained. The scorpion spirit nodded repeatedly. No wonder he had used all kinds of methods to no avail. The problem was with his own inner core. Eldritch was right. He was born a poisonous scorpion. His inner core, which was formed from the essence of his spirit chi, naturally became the source of the poison. However, removing the pill poison was easy to say, but how could it be easy to do? The poison in his inner core had already merged with his spirit chi, and could not be separated. If he wanted to completely remove the pill poison, he would have to completely destroy his spirit chi cultivation of nearly 1,000 years and cultivate from scratch. However, how could he bear to destroy nearly 1,000 years of his cultivation? Once he did that, he would immediately become an ordinary scorpion the size of a palm. He would not even have the venom to protect himself. He would be swallowed by his natural enemy at any time and die. "Sir, do you have a way to remove my pill poison?" the scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan anxiously. "If I don't have a way to deal with it, how would I dare to boast in front of Brother Zijing?" Yi Fan saw the scorpion spirit's difficulty and asked with a smile. The scorpion spirit was overjoyed. Obviously, Yi Fan had a way. "Spit out your Niden right now and let me use my spirit energy to refine it and completely remove its toxicity," Yi Fan said to the scorpion spirit. "When that time comes, you can swallow it again and your unspeakable illness will naturally be completely removed." "Okay," the scorpion spirit replied. "I will give my inner core to you now." As the scorpion spirit spoke, he immediately sat cross-legged on a large rock behind him and used his mind power to activate the inner core in his body. Buzz, a black and purple glow appeared on the scorpion spirit's body. It was dazzling. He had nearly 1,000 years of cultivation, and his spirit chi cultivation was naturally extraordinary. After the glow appeared, the scorpion spirit raised his head slightly and exhaled softly. Whoosh! As white smoke came out of the scorpion spirit's mouth, a walnut-sized bead slowly emerged from the white smoke and flew slowly toward Yi Fan. This bead flashed with black light and was surrounded by purple light. It was brilliant and dazzling. This object was none other than the scorpion spirit's inner core. After the scorpion spirit spat out the inner core, he immediately closed his eyes and closed his mouth. The light around his body kept flashing and buzzing. The inner core had already flown out of his body. All he could do was conceal his spirit and chi. He temporarily used the power of his primordial spirit and the remaining spirit chi in his energy reserve to maintain his human form so that he would not reveal his true form. Giving one's inner core to others was the biggest taboo in the cultivation world. Once the other party took away the inner core or swallowed it himself, the party who lost the inner core would not have any power to fight back. He could only hand over his years of cultivation to someone else. But for the scorpion spirit, he did not have such suspicions. Who was Eldritch? He was a peerless master who fought the 6 immortals without losing a single battle. Although this person was both good and evil, arrogant and unruly, he was an open and upright person with a magnanimous heart. Handing over the inner core to him, the scorpion spirit could be said to be at ease. Seeing the scorpion spirit so happily handing over the inner core to him, Yi Fan smiled and nodded. It could be seen that the scorpion spirit trusted him very much. Otherwise, he would not entrust such an important thing to him. Yi Fan thought in his heart. He stretched out his right hand and gently held the inner core in his hand. He held the inner core in his right hand and made a sword with his left hand. He urged the proud moon heavenly scriptures spirit chi and pointed at the inner core. Shwa, a green brilliance spewed out from Yi Fan's fingertip and instantly shot toward the inner core floating above his palm. The green brilliance was dazzling. It was like Yi Kong's azure moon, proud and cold. Like centipedes, scorpions were of the Yin attribute. They liked to hide in dark and damp places. Because of this, their inner core was of the Yin attribute. The mysterious sky secret essence was the purest yang spirit chi. If this spirit chi was used to remove the poison from the scorpion spirit's inner core, then the spirit chi in the inner core would be destroyed by the mysterious sky secret essence's spirit chi. However, the proud moon heavenly scripture's spirit chi was different. Its spirit chi was very domineering, but it was a combination of hardness and softness. Since ancient times, most monsters would come out to worship the moon on a full moon night to absorb the essence of the moon and nourish their inner core. It was very rare to see a monster come out to worship the sun. The reason for this was not because the sun's spirit chi was inferior to the moon's, but because the sun's spirit chi was purest yang spirit chi. Normal monsters could not withstand it, let alone absorb it into their inner core. Although the moon was of the Yin attribute, it was a lonely moon in the sky surrounded by stars. At the same time, the moon was the yang of the Yin. Yin and yang complemented each other. Therefore, it was not strange for the demon realm to worship the moon to be the best method to absorb the essence. Hua, the scorpion spirit's inner core, was being refined by Yi Fan's proud moon heavenly scriptures spirit chi. It began to slowly rotate above Yi Fan's palm. Chi as it spun, countless strands of dark brown smoke rose from the inner core in Yi Fan's palm and slowly rose upwards. This smoke was none other than the poison from the scorpion spirit's inner core. Yi Fan focused all his attention on refining the inner core. He did not dare to relax at all. He had to remove all the poison from the inner core. He could not leave any residual poison inside. Otherwise, the poison would secretly grow and come back. As the saying goes, cut the grass by the root. He had to ensure that the inner core was not poisonous. Shwa, as the poisonous smoke became thicker, the scorpion spirit's inner core also became smaller. After all, the poison had been forced out of the inner core. But at the same time, the color of the inner core had a drastic change. The inner core that was dark purple earlier had now turned into a pure purple. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the inner core no longer emitted any black smoke. The inner core had also turned completely purple. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, Yi Fan did not reduce his spirit qi and continued to refine the inner core. Hua, the inner core that had shrunk earlier, began to slowly expand and gradually returned to the size of a walnut. The inner core's poison had been removed and it had begun to absorb the spirit qi released by Yi Fan. The inner core was surrounded by purple qi and it was rising. Seeing that the inner core had begun to expand, Yi Fan was relieved. Chapter 788. Brother Zijing, I have finished refining the inner core. You can take it back now. As Yi Fan spoke, he gently waved the inner core that was surrounded by a purple light in his hand. Whoosh, the dazzling inner core flew toward the scorpion spirit slowly. When the inner core reached the scorpion spirit's mouth, he opened his mouth slightly and swallowed the inner core. Buzz, as soon as the inner core entered the scorpion spirit's body, the scorpion spirit's body glowed with a strong purple light. The purple light was dazzling and dazzling. Whoosh, in the purple light, the scorpion spirit's skin started to change drastically. The skin on his forehead started to change from a purplish-brown color to a normal white color. The bumpy skin on his face also started to become smooth and shiny. In the blink of an eye, the scorpion demon, who had a terrifying expression and appearance just a moment ago, instantly turned into a refined and handsome man with delicate features. When the purple light around him disappeared, the scorpion spirit slowly opened his eyes. He raised his hands slowly and placed them in front of his eyes. When he saw that his hands had turned back to a normal color, the scorpion spirit became emotional instantly. He hurriedly stood up and tore open the front of his shirt, revealing his chest. Just like the skin on his hands, his chest was completely white and had a normal color. "Mister, thank you so much for your kindness." "Thank you so much." The scorpion spirit knelt down in front of Yi Fan. He was sobbing and crying. From now on, he was no longer a monster. He no longer had to stay away from people and live alone. After hundreds of years of depression, he could not control his emotions now that he was free. "It's nothing. Brother Zijing, you are so generous. You will shorten my life. Please get up, get up." Yi Fan quickly helped the scorpion spirit up from the ground and said. The scorpion spirit stood up and wiped his tears with his sleeve. "Brother Zijing, you are almost 1,000 years old. Why are you crying like a child?" Yi Fan said with a smile. The scorpion spirit smiled and said, "I'm sorry." Yi Fan patted the scorpion spirit's shoulder and said, "Everything is almost done. I should go back. Brother Zijing, take care. We will meet again in the future." "Mister, are you leaving now?" the scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan anxiously. "Yes." Yi Fan nodded and said, "Among the 9 cauldrons, there are still 3 that have yet to be found. I still have many things to do. Since there is no news of the remaining 3 cauldrons, mister, you don't have to be in a hurry." The scorpion demon said to Yi Fan, "My cave residence is only about 150 kilometers away from here. Please come to my place to rest for a while, and let me do my part as a host. I appreciate Brother Zijing's kind intentions, but there's no need to go through the trouble." Yi Fan waved his hand and smiled. "Since we're brothers, there's no need for those complicated formalities. Mister, you may not know this, but I have stored quite a few good treasures in my cave, including a few top-notch weapons." The scorpion spirit said to Yi Fan, "I heard that Mister has reincarnated as the young master of the Yi family of the Divine Armament family, so I would like to ask Mister to help me appraise them." "Top-notch weapons?" Yi Fan asked after hearing this. He was interested in the top-notch weapons mentioned by the Scorpion Spirit. That's right. The Scorpion Spirit answered. I exchanged some precious herbs for those weapons from a few demon friends. They look like antiques. Mister, you are very knowledgeable and know a lot about weapons, so I would like to ask Mister to help me take a look and also rest in my cave residence. This. Yi Fan was a little hesitant. Mister, don't worry. It won't take up too much of your time. The Scorpion Spirit said to Yi Fan. All right. Yi Fan nodded and said, Since Brother Zijing has invited me so kindly, it would be impolite of me to refuse. Thank you, mister, for the honor. Please. As the Scorpion Spirit spoke, he flicked his sleeves and transformed into a breeze and flew up. Yi Fan, on the other hand, rode on an auspicious cloud and followed closely behind. Compared to when he came, the Scorpion Spirit's speed had increased by a lot. His inner core had been carefully refined by Yi Fan with his spiritual power, so his spiritual energy was extremely pure. Naturally, his cultivation level had reached a new level. They covered more than 150 kilometers in the blink of an eye. Mister, my cave residence is in the mountain in front. In midair, the Scorpion Spirit revealed his human form and said to Yi Fan, who was beside him. Yi Fan focused his vision and looked ahead. There was a stone mountain that was neither big nor small. Although the vegetation on the mountain could not be said to be lush, it was still quite lush. However, what surprised Yi Fan was that there was an endless amount of auspicious qi rising from the middle of the mountain. The propitious qi was of different colors. They gathered together in large and small sizes, resembling 5-colored clouds. Of course, these auspicious clouds couldn't be seen by ordinary people. Could it be that Brother Zijing's cave residence is on the mountainside? Yi Fan turned his head and asked the Scorpion Spirit. Mister's eyes are as sharp as torches, the Scorpion Spirit said to Yi Fan with a smile. How many treasures are hidden in Brother Zijing's cave residence? It has such a soaring aura. Yi Fan turned his head and asked the Scorpion Spirit with a smile. Mister, you'll know when you get there, the Scorpion Spirit replied with a smile. The two of them soon arrived at the mountainside. The Scorpion Spirit flicked his sleeves when they were only 100 feet away from the cliff of the mountain. Bang! The cliff opened with a sound, and a 5-feet-wide stone door flashed out. There was a stone plaque hanging above the stone door. 3 big words were written on it: Sparkling Gem Pavilion. Sparkling Gem Pavilion. This name is very good. It lives up to its name, Yi Fan said to the Scorpion Spirit after seeing these 3 words. Mister, please come in, the Scorpion Spirit replied with a smile. The two of them flew into the cave one after another. After landing on the ground, Yi Fan began to look around the cave. The cave was very spacious. It wasn't as magnificent as the Lingyun cave, but it still had its own charm. There was a stone room, a stone pavilion, a stone platform, and a stone bench. A shrine of the 3 pure ones was enshrined on the stone wall in the middle. There was a stone incense burner in front of the shrine. Smoke was curling up from the incense burner. Your cave should be less lively. You should decorate it with flowers and plants, Yi Fan said as he looked around the cave. Mister is really funny, the Scorpion Spirit said with a smile. I was covered in poisonous gas before, so I couldn't avoid all living things. How could I dare to raise flowers and plants? Yi Fan was surprised at first. Then, he shook his head and smiled. He had forgotten about this matter. The Scorpion Spirit was right. With the poisonous gas on his body, even if he raised flowers and plants here, they would probably wither and die in a few days. However, I won't have to worry about this in the future, the Scorpion Spirit said to Yi Fan with a smile. The next time you come, this place will be full of life. As the Scorpion Spirit said this, he gestured for Yi Fan to sit. Yi Fan nodded and sat down at a stone table. The Scorpion Spirit turned and walked into another stone room. He brought out a fruit platter and fragrant tea, and called out to Yi Fan. Where are the high-quality weapons that Brother Zijing mentioned? Yi Fan took a sip of the fragrant tea and asked the scorpion spirit, "Mister, please wait for a moment. I'll go get them for you now," the scorpion spirit said as he turned and left. After the scorpion spirit left, Yi Fan drank his tea quietly while waiting for the scorpion spirit to go get the weapons. Buzz, just as Yi Fan was bored to death, a crisp sound came from the direction the scorpion spirit left. Before Yi Fan could react, a ball of green light flew in front of Yi Fan. The ball of light was 3 feet long and green in color. It shone with thousands of auspicious lights and thousands of auspicious chi. Seeing this, Yi Fan immediately put the teacup in his hand on the stone table. Then, he stood up and looked at the ball of green light in front of him in disbelief. Swoosh! 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 After Yi Fan stood up, the green light began to circle around him from front to back. Buzz, just as Yi Fan was wondering what kind of treasure this ball of green light was, the frost dragon's sword coiled around his waist suddenly let out a dragon's roar. The frost dragon sword's roar caused Yi Fan's pupils to shrink. Could it be that the auspicious green light in front of him was one of the 9 sheaths of the frost dragon? Clang! Just as Yi Fan was thinking about this, the frost dragon's sword at his waist flew out on its own and floated in front of him with a bright silver light. Whoosh! As soon as the frost dragon's sword appeared, the green light that was circling around Yi Fan instantly changed direction and flew toward the frost dragon's sword at high speed. Boom! As the glacial dragon's sword and the green light merged into one, countless streaks of white and green light exploded forth in all directions. Yi Fan raised his sleeves to block the light that burst out. When the light in the room completely disappeared, Yi Fan lowered his sleeves and looked at the frost dragon's sword. With one look, Yi Fan's face lit up with joy. On the frost dragon's sword's body, there was an additional scabbard that was a few inches long. It had the body of a wolf and the head of a dragon. It was mighty and handsome, and it was full of killing intent. It was the Yazi scabbard, the Yazi of the 9 suns. Yi Fan was shocked. Mister, one of the treasures in my treasure room suddenly flew out for no reason. Did you see? At this moment, the scorpion spirit ran out of the stone room and asked Yi Fan loudly. When he opened the door to the stone room and was about to take out the top-notch weapons for Yi Fan to appraise, the Yazi beast accessory that he had kept in his treasure chest suddenly started to ring. It shone brightly and made a buzzing sound. When the scorpion spirit saw this, he was shocked. However, just as he was about to touch the Yazi accessory, the item suddenly turned into a green light and flew out of the stone room on its own, disappearing in an instant. At this time, he did not have time to think. He immediately closed the treasure chest and rushed out of the stone room. However, when he saw the Yazi accessory covering the frost dragon's sword in midair, the scorpion spirit instantly understood everything. He knew that the Yazi accessory was an accessory on the sword, but he never expected that it was one of the 9 divine scabbards of the frost dragon sword, the Yazi scabbard. This is the Yazi divine scabbard? The scorpion spirit looked at the shining frost dragon sword in front of him and said in a daze, "Brother Zijing, I really don't know how to thank you," Yi Fan said to the scorpion spirit as he reached out to grab the frost dragon sword floating in front of him. Swoosh! Chapter 789. I didn't expect this to be one of the 9 sheaths of the frost dragon, the scorpion spirit said to Yi Fan. Where did Brother Zijing get this Yazi sheath? Yi Fan asked the scorpion spirit as he stroked the radiant frost dragon sword in his hand. I obtained this item by chance on an unknown stone mountain more than 200 years ago, the scorpion demon replied. Back then, I was invited by a demon friend to have a drink at his place at night. When I was traveling at night, I noticed that there was an auspicious aura looming in the mountain below my feet, so I immediately descended and went to check it out. In the end, I found a 3-foot-long emerald bluestone in the mountain stream. The auspicious aura was released from the bluestone. Brother Zijing, are you saying that the Yazi sheath is in the rock? Yi Fan looked up at the scorpion spirit and asked. That's right, the scorpion spirit replied. Back then, I thought it was a piece of raw jade stone, so I used my dagger to cut it open. In the end, I found the Yazi sheath hidden in the rock. So that's how it is. Yi Fan nodded slowly. You obtained the divine cauldron's mystic pattern and the Yazi sheath returned to the frost dragon. Mister, you have a double blessing today. Congratulations. The scorpion spirit smiled at Yi Fan. I'm sorry for taking away Brother Zijing's treasure, Yi Fan said with a smile. Mister, what are you saying? The scorpion spirit waved his hand and smiled. This item was originally one of the 9 sheaths of the frost dragon sword. Today, it merged with the frost dragon and returned to its original owner. What has it got to do with me? Yi Fan shook his head and smiled. He put away the frost dragon sword in his hand. I'll go get the 3 weapons for you to appraise, the scorpion spirit said as he walked back into the stone room. After a while, the scorpion spirit returned with the 3 swords. Mister, please take a look. These are the 2 swords and 1 sword that I collected. The scorpion spirit placed the swords on the stone table and said to Yi Fan. The 2 swords and 1 sword were simple and unadorned. It was obvious that they were ancient swords. Yi Fan picked up the long sword first and examined it in his hand. The sword was more than 3 feet long, and its entire body was dark green. The scabbard was engraved with flowing clouds and flames, and the sword hilt was engraved with a baixia. Baixia was shaped like a male lion, with 2 horns on his head and a pair of wings on his body. He looked mighty and majestic, extremely lifelike. The sword was heavy in his hand, and the decorations were beautiful. It was definitely not an ordinary sword. Yi Fan slowly drew his sword. Clang along with a melodious ringing sound, a long sword that was as cold as snow was unsheathed. The blade of the long sword was smooth and shiny, without any impurities. Its color was like autumn water, and its sword chi was like a rainbow. At the mouth of the sword hilt, there were 2 ancient seals, green rainbow, faintly engraved. What a good cyan rainbow sword! Yi Fan placed the long sword in front of his eyes and looked it up and down. He couldn't help but say, I heard that this sword and Chow Chow's green tortoise sword in the 3 Kingdoms period are 1 male and 1 female. I thought it was nonsense, but I didn't expect this sword to really exist. If that's the case, this sword is from the 3 Kingdoms period? The scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan slowly nodded. Mister, take a look at this saber. The scorpion spirit handed a long saber on the table to Yi Fan with both hands. Yi Fan sheathed his longsword and took the long saber. The long saber was black and shiny, and its shape was wide at the front and narrow at the back. It was a typical saber from the Central Plains. Regardless of whether it was the scabbard or the hilt, they were extremely smooth without any patterns. They looked like one piece. Cha! Yi Fan directly unsheathed the saber. It was the complete opposite of the cyan rainbow sword. The body of this saber was also black as ink. The moment the saber was unsheathed, the stone room instantly became cold and even dark. What a strong killing intent! Yi Fan looked at the black saber in his hand and said with a frown, Mister, what do you think of this saber? The scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan. This saber has a strong killing intent and is full of resentment. It's definitely not an auspicious item, Yi Fan said with a frown. If I'm not wrong, more than 1,000 people have died under this saber. Brother Zijing, it's best to stay away from such an inauspicious item to prevent it from affecting your mind. After hearing this, the scorpion spirit nodded with a serious expression. Where did Brother Zijing get this saber? Yi Fan sheathed the saber and turned to ask the scorpion spirit. I exchanged this saber for it from a friend, the scorpion spirit replied. According to that friend, he got it from a general's grave. No wonder it has such a strong killing intent. So it's an item from the military, Yi Fan said with a nod. On the battlefield, people fought with their lives on the line. As a general in the military, it was not unusual for him to kill thousands of enemies with his own hands. Therefore, it was not strange to see such a saber with such a strong killing intent. "Mister, take a look at this saber." The scorpion spirit picked up another saber and handed it to Yi Fan. Yi Fan put the black saber aside and took the third weapon from the scorpion spirit. This was also a saber, but it was a tang saber. At first glance, it looked similar to the Japanese samurai sabers. However, the difference between the two was obvious. The Japanese saber was curved, while the tang saber was straight without any curve. This saber was nearly 4 feet long and was covered in gold, shining with a golden light. The hilt was entwined with golden threads, and the top was inlaid with a luminous amber bead. The scabbard was exquisitely carved, and there was a lifelike golden phoenix in the clouds carved on it. It looked extremely domineering, but it didn't lose its exquisite beauty. Yi Fan had a deep impression of this saber. The reason was simple. The powerful demonic saber in Yi Ming's hand was in the shape of a tang saber. This saber is so beautiful and has a golden phoenix pattern on it. It should be the personal weapon of a royal lady. Yi Fan said as he slowly unsheathed the saber. Clang, following the roar of a tiger and dragon, the golden tang saber was unsheathed. The body of the saber was bright and dazzling. The entire cave was instantly filled with light. At the mouth of the golden saber, 2 ancient seal characters came into view. Phoenix wings. What made Yi Fan feel even more incredulous was that under the 2 words, there was an extremely familiar flame pattern. And this pattern was the Yi family's family emblem. This is a saber made by the Yi family. Yi Fan exclaimed when he saw the Yi family's pattern on the saber. The scorpion spirit was also shocked when he heard this. He did not expect this woman's tang saber to be made by the Yi family. What a great phoenix wing saber! Yi Fan looked at the body of the phoenix wing saber that was as bright as snow and said with shining eyes. The Yi family's weapon forging skills were not just for show. Not only was this saber beautiful, its craftsmanship was also impeccable. If he guessed correctly, this saber must have been made during the Tang dynasty, and the wielder was a royal lady of the Tang dynasty. Most importantly, only the head of the Yi family at that time was qualified to make a saber for such a noble person. Looking at the incomparably noble phoenix wing saber in his hand, Yi Fan once again felt the supreme glory of his family. "Sir? Sir?" Seeing that Yi Fan was deep in thought, the scorpion spirit called out softly to Yi Fan. Yi Fan came back to his senses and turned to look at the scorpion spirit. He smiled embarrassedly. "Sir, are you mesmerized by this phoenix wing saber?" The scorpion spirit asked Yi Fan with a smile. "I won't hide it from Brother Zijing. Seeing this item made by my family several hundred years ago, I feel a little emotional." As Yi Fan spoke, he sheathed the phoenix wing saber and handed it to the scorpion spirit. "Since Sir likes this saber, I'll give it to you as a gift." The scorpion spirit gently pushed the incomparably beautiful phoenix wing saber back and said with a smile, "Give it to me? How can I do that?" Yi Fan pushed the phoenix wing saber back to the scorpion spirit again. "This is your treasure. How can I take what you love?" "Sir, you forgot that this is a woman's saber. I don't plan on getting married, so what's the use of keeping this saber?" The scorpion spirit said with a smile, "Sir is different from me. You are already married. This phoenix wing saber will be of use to your wife. I'll leave it for her in the future." No. This item is too valuable. I can't accept it. Chico has a treasured saber, so she has no use for this saber." Yi Fan waved his hand to reject it. "Sir, you have done me a great favor. Other than this saber, there's nothing else I can give you," the scorpion spirit answered. "If you don't accept it, I can only assume that you are not giving me face. Brother Zijing, don't misunderstand. I'm really Since we call each other brothers, why are you so polite? As the scorpion spirit spoke, he stuffed the phoenix wing saber into Yi Fan's hands. This, all right. Seeing that the scorpion spirit insisted on giving the saber to him, Yi Fan could only accept it. I allowed you to appraise these 3 weapons for 2 reasons. Firstly, I wanted to find an excuse to invite you to my humble abode to express my gratitude. Secondly, I wanted you to choose a personal weapon from the 3 weapons, the scorpion spirit said to Yi Fan with a smile. From the looks of it, only the green rainbow sword is suitable for me. This sword is filled with righteousness and majestic sword chi. It has the demeanor of a gentleman. As Brother Zijing's personal sword, it is extremely suitable. Yi Fan said to the scorpion spirit, Brother Zijing, when you are free, you can use your spirit chi to nourish this sword. In time, this sword will definitely become sentient and recognize its master. Its sword chi will increase tremendously. All right, I'll listen to you, sir, the scorpion spirit answered. You're still calling me sir, Yi Fan said with a smile. Oh, Brother Yi, the scorpion spirit said with a smile. Ha ha ha, the 2 of them laughed loudly at the same time. An hour later, Yi Fan's figure appeared at the foot of Spirit Flame Mountain once again. The Fire Kirin was still having fun nearby. He had to bring it back. Fire Kirin? Fire Kirin? Yi Fan called out to the Fire Kirin. The Fire Kirin, which was wandering dozens of kilometers away, turned its ear and instantly heard Yi Fan's call. It was an ancient spirit beast, so its 5 senses were not inferior to Yi Fan's. Although it was dozens of kilometers away, it could still hear him clearly. It stepped on the fire beneath its feet and soared into the sky, flying rapidly in the direction of Yi Fan. It was so fast that it looked like a huge fireball from afar. Yi Fan smiled as he watched the Fire Kirin swooping down from the sky. It's about time. Come back with me, Yi Fan said as he reached out to take out the yin-yang ghost seal. The Fire Kirin in the sky roared softly and instantly transformed into the size of a palm. It leaped onto the yin-yang ghost seal and returned to its previous appearance. Chapter 790. Above the clouds, Yi Fan was standing on the auspicious clouds with a smile on his face. It was obvious that he was in a good mood. This trip to the western region could be said to be a fruitful one. He obtained the pattern of the divine cauldron, saved the people, made new friends, and even obtained the Yazi sword scabbard on the frost dragon sword, as well as the royal divine weapon that the Yi family had forged hundreds of years ago. While being happy, Yi Fan couldn't help but secretly admire his previous life, Eldritch. It was obvious that this trip was still within Eldritch's calculations. He wasn't the only one in his calculations. There were also the divine cauldron, the volcano, the scorpion spirit, the earthen city, and the Yazi sword scabbard. Eldritch's ability had already far exceeded his imagination. But no matter what, he had already obtained the pattern of the 6 divine cauldrons. If he continued to develop at this speed, collecting the pattern of the 9 divine cauldrons would be just around the corner. Yi Fan thought to himself as he increased the speed of the auspicious clouds. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Yi Fan's auspicious clouds flew to less than 100 miles away from the earthen city. It was already close to noon, the hottest time of the day. The sun shone down from above Yi Fan's head, illuminating Yi Fan's body. Yi Fan started to descend, increasing the distance between himself and the sun. But just as the auspicious clouds below him descended by 300 feet, the sound of thunder came from the sky in front of him. Yi Fan frowned when he heard it. He immediately shaded his eyes with his hands and focused his eyes to look at the sky in front of him. It was broad daylight with no clouds in sight. How could there be thunder? But when he saw the scene in the sky in the distance, Yi Fan turned pale with fright. Above the earthen city, hundreds of miles away, countless black clouds were rapidly gathering. The black clouds gathered at an extremely fast speed, as if they had appeared out of thin air. In an instant, The entire earthen city and the surrounding desert were completely enveloped. Rumble crack within the black clouds, the sound of thunder filled the sky as purple lightning streaked across the horizon. Whoosh, strong winds blew, sand and stones flew everywhere as the sky filled with yellow sand dancing wildly. Heaven and earth instantly changed color. What was going on? Why did the dark clouds suddenly appear without warning? Looking at this formation, it was definitely not an ordinary dark cloud. Could it be that a monster was undergoing tribulation in Tuching? Impossible. Yi Fan quickly rejected this judgment. When he was in Tuching Earth City, he carefully observed and perceived the situation in Tuching Earth City, and there were no monsters. Since it wasn't a demon's tribulation, why would there be such a bizarre phenomenon? Thinking of the strange astronomical phenomenon, Yi Fan suddenly remembered the strange astronomical phenomenon when he and Akatsuki had just arrived at Loyu village. There must be something fishy about this. Yi Fan thought to himself. Since he had encountered such a thing again, he had to get to the bottom of this matter. When Yi Fan thought of this, he immediately dispersed the auspicious clouds under his feet and used his spiritual energy to activate his body movement technique. Whoosh! Yi Fan turned into a white star and flew toward Tuching like a meteor dragging a long tail behind him. Before investigating the sudden dark clouds and lightning, he had to ensure the safety of Akatsuki and Xiao Zhao. Whoosh! The star was as fast as lightning and instantly fell into the courtyard of the woman's Tuching building. At this moment, Yu Hongji was standing in the middle of the courtyard, anxiously looking up at the rolling dark clouds above her head that were moving back and forth like lightning. Why are you standing here? Go back to the house. In the fierce wind, Yi Fan, who was descending from the sky, shouted at the two of them. Bufan-kun, you're back. Akatsuki immediately shouted happily when she saw Yi Fan descending from the sky. When she saw the strange phenomenon, the first thought that came to her mind was that Yi Fan was in danger. She wasn't worried that Yi Fan would encounter an expert, because Yi Fan had already passed the heavenly tribulation and almost no one was his match. She was only worried about one thing, which was that Yi Fan's mind was occupied by the evil spirit, causing the heavenly tribulation to appear and be struck by lightning. Therefore, when she saw Yi Fan return safely, Akatsuki was finally relieved. There was nothing wrong with Yi Fan's mind. Go back to the house, it's dangerous here, quick! Yi Fan landed on both feet and shouted at Akatsuki. What about you? Akatsuki, whose robes were fluttering in the wind, asked Yi Fan loudly. I'll go up and see what's going on, Yi Fan, whose silver hair was fluttering in the wind, said to Akatsuki as he pointed at the rolling dark clouds above. Take care of Xiao Zhao and Miss Dong. Don't come out until I come back. Gotcha. As soon as Yi Fan finished speaking, a bolt of heavenly tribulation exploded in the dark clouds above his head. Whoosh! As soon as the thunder stopped, a torrential downpour came from the sky. Buzz! As soon as the torrential downpour came, a 7-foot translucent ball of light appeared out of thin air and enveloped Yi Fan. The torrential downpour bypassed the ball of light and smashed onto the ground, splashing water everywhere. The water-repelling pearl in Yi Fan's pocket started to take effect. Let's go back, Yi Fan said as he tapped the ground with the tip of his foot. Whoosh! Yi Fan, who was inside the water-repelling pearl of light, instantly flew up into the sky. Be careful! Akatsuki, who was in the midst of the torrential downpour, put her hands to her mouth and looked up at Yi Fan's receding figure. She shouted loudly. Rumble! The rolling thunder drowned out her voice in the torrential downpour. The silver-haired, black-robed Yi Fan's movements were as fast as lightning as he proudly charged upwards. Whoosh! The water-repelling pearl of light carried Yi Fan and instantly charged into the rolling dark clouds. Buzz! 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 Gotcha! Gotcha! Countless purple lightning bolts intertwined in the clouds around him, shuttling back and forth. Within the ball of light, Yi Fan's expression was calm. At this moment, He had already passed the heavenly tribulation and was not afraid of these ordinary purple lightning bolts at all. He urged the water-repelling pearl of light to charge upwards. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the water-repelling pearl of light broke through the dark clouds and arrived above the clouds. But, after passing through the clouds, there was no more torrential downpour. The water-repelling pearl of light instantly shattered and turned into specks of light. Yifan hovered 300 feet above the dark clouds and observed his surroundings. At this moment, beneath his feet was a sea of dark clouds filled with rumbling thunder and shuttling back and forth. Above him, tens of thousands of rays of sunlight shone down. Above the sea of clouds, apart from Yifan, there was no one else. However, even so, Yifan still sensed the other party's presence. He sensed an expert whose cultivation level was almost on par with his. "Since you're already here, why are you still hiding?" Yifan placed his hands behind his back and said calmly. "Eldritch is indeed eldritch. Truly extraordinary." A man's voice sounded. His voice was deep and clear. The man's voice sounded from all directions, making it impossible for one to determine his exact location. Whoosh! The sea of dark clouds 100 feet in front of Yifan slowly dispersed, forming a 1-foot-wide cloud hole. A handsome man standing on auspicious clouds slowly rose from the cloud hole. This man wore a green jade crown on his head, a black jade robe, a white jade belt around his waist, and a pair of cloud boots on his feet. He looked to be about the same age as Yifan. His face was as clear as jade, and he was full of spirit and elegance. What shocked Yifan was that this man was surrounded by an auspicious aura and was enveloped by an auspicious light. He was like a true immortal. This man's spiritual power was abundant and his cultivation level was domineering. He was not inferior to him at all. Looking at the man in front of him, Yifan was greatly shocked. Ever since he had passed the heavenly tribulation at the demon-slaying conference, this was the first time he had encountered such a powerful expert. However, even so, Yifan did not feel any pressure at all. This man was indeed a peerless expert, but he was not to be trifled with either. If they really fought, this man would not be able to gain any advantage over him. "You were the one who caused the heavenly phenomenon in the falling rain village last time, right?" Yifan asked straightforwardly. "That's right, I was the one who did that." The man standing on the auspicious clouds floated in front of Yifan and smiled. "At that time, I happened to pass by the falling rain village, and saw that it was rainy all year round, so I used a little technique to make it clear for a day. However, I still can't compare to you." The man shook his head with a smile and continued, "I could only temporarily clear the sky after the rain, but you directly took drastic measures. Not only did you subdue the ghosts there, you even obtained the approval of the fire Kirin on the yin-yang ghost seal. Perhaps you still don't know, but the weather there has completely returned to normal. There is no need for continuous rain every day." "You know a lot of things," Yifan calmly replied. The man smiled and did not speak. "What do you want? Why are you always following me?" Yifan hit the nail on the head. "Following you?" The man smiled. "What do you mean by that, Mr. Eldritch? I came to the Falling Rain Village, and you also came to the Falling Rain Village. I came to the Earth City to do some business, and you also came here. Why is it such a coincidence?" Yifan looked at the man and asked. "Last time, I passed by the Falling Rain Village, but this time is different." The man in the green robe said, "This time, I came specially to find you." "Find me?" Yifan narrowed his eyes and asked, "Why are you looking for me?" "To tell you a piece of bad news." The man said. "Bad news? What bad news?" Yifan narrowed his eyes and asked. "Among the 9 cauldrons, you have already obtained the patterns of 6 cauldrons. Am I wrong?" The man did not directly answer Yifan, but asked a question instead. After Yifan heard this, he was secretly shocked. Who exactly was this person? He actually knew that he had obtained the patterns of 6 cauldrons. One had to know that he had just guessed the pattern of the sixth cauldron, and only the scorpion spirit and himself knew about this. Even Akatsuki did not know about this. I didn't guess wrong, right? After seeing a flash of surprise in Yi Fan's eyes, the man in the green robe laughed. Who are you? Yi Fan frowned and asked. Well said, I am Yi Shueihan from the Tsing-Yi Society. The man calmly replied. You are Yi Shueihan from the Tsing-Yi Society? After Yi Fan heard this, he said with slight surprise. Why, don't I look like one? The man in the green robe laughed. So it is society leader Yi. Yi Fan nodded and said, No wonder you have such a superpower and can control the weather so freely. Yi Shueihan smiled slightly and did not speak. I wonder what bad news Mr. Yi is looking for me to tell me? Yi Fan asked Yi Shueihan. Do you know the bellkeeper? Yi Shueihan asked Yi Fan. Yi Fan was shocked again. This Yi Shueihan was indeed not simple. He even knew about the bellkeeper. Chapter 791. What? Hearing Yi Shueihan's words, Yi Fan turned pale with fright. The 3 keepers of the bell were killed in one night? That's right, Yi Shueihan nodded as he explained to Yi Fan. I received a secret report yesterday. Zhujiang's Heavenly Sword Manor's young manor Lord Lin Huaiji, Tiantai Mountain's Hell Valley's Valley Lord Nangong Ao, as well as the Plain Maiden Sword's successor, Murong Chiyue, who lived in seclusion on Plain Maiden Peak, were killed at the same time. Their other identities were the bellkeepers. How do you know that the 3 of them are the bellkeepers? Yi Fan frowned and asked Yi Shueihan. It's very simple. Because I'm also one of the 9 bellkeepers, Yi Shueihan replied. And I've seen the yellow bell, green bell, and blue bell in their hands with my own eyes. There's no mistake. You are one of the bellkeepers? Yi Fan asked Yi Shueihan warily. How can I believe you? Yi Shueihan didn't answer directly, but took out a 3-inch wooden box and threw it to Yi Fan. But Yi Fan caught the box and opened it. When he saw the item in the box, Yi Fan's expression instantly turned serious. Inside the wooden box, there was an exquisite little bell that was shining with brilliant purple light. Except for the color, this bell was exactly the same as the one in his pocket. Yi Shueihan is indeed one of the 9 bellkeepers. When Yi Fan thought of this, he closed the wooden box again and threw it back to Yi Shueihan. Do you believe me now? Yi Shueihan returned the purple bell to his pocket and asked Yi Fan. How did they die? Yi Fan asked Yi Shueihan with a frown. Heavenly Sword Villa's Lin Huaiji was slashed in the throat by his sword. Hell Valley's Lord Nangong Ao's soul was crushed by his evil art and he breathed his last. The Plain Maiden Sword's successor, Murong Chiyue, died even more miserably. Her divine weapon, the Flying Flower Sword, was shattered inch by her opponent. Every inch of the broken sword pierced through Murong Chiyue's vital acupoints and she died. Yi Shueihan frowned and said, Lin Huaiji's swordsmanship was as fast as lightning, and his sword chi surged violently, but his opponent used his own sword to slit his throat. Nangong Ao's yin-yang secret technique was superb, and he was good at everything, but his opponent crushed his soul. Murong Chiyue's flying flower sword chi was like a field of flying flowers, and every move was aimed at the opponent's vital points. In the end, his opponent gave him a taste of his own medicine. It's obvious that the other party wanted to humiliate the 3 of them by killing them in the areas they were most proficient in. Yi Fan's eyes narrowed. Not only was the killer's cultivation high, but he was also ruthless and conceited. Did you find out who the killer is? Yi Fan asked Yi Shueihan. Yi Shueihan shook his head. Does that mean the 3 bells in their possession were also stolen? Yi Fan asked again. Yi Shueihan nodded. Yi Fan's face showed a trace of worry. Whoever had the corresponding 9 bells could enter the 9 divine cauldrons' barrier unimpeded and could even obtain the inscriptions on the 9 divine cauldrons. After obtaining the 3 bells, this person can directly obtain the inscriptions on the 3 divine cauldrons. Even the barrier of the divine cauldrons will be unobstructed, Yi Xuehan said to Yi Fan with a frown. This matter is of great importance, so I have specially come to inform you. You should be careful. You're afraid that person will attack me? Yi Fan looked up at Yi Xuehan and asked solemnly. Correct. Yi Xuehan answered directly. If he really comes to find me, it may be a good thing. Yi Fan said calmly. This person's cultivation base is so high that it's rarely seen in the world. You must not underestimate him. Yi Xuehan told Yi Fan. Although the 3 of them's cultivation bases are far from yours, they must be no ordinary people since they were chosen by Juling. According to my observations at the scene, the 3 of them did not even have the chance to make a move before they were killed in one move. The murderer's speed is unimaginable. I'm afraid you didn't come to find me just to tell me this, right? Yi Fan asked Yi Xuehan. What do you mean? Yi Xuehan asked Yi Fan. If I'm not wrong, you must have suspected that I was the murderer who killed the 3 of them. Yi Fan said to Yi Xuehan, who was 10 feet away, but you were not sure that the murderer was me, so you followed me here and secretly observed me, right? You're very smart. Yi Xuehan said with a smile. Before I came, I did suspect that it was you. There were 3 reasons. First, you were looking for the 9 divine cauldrons. In order to save your wife's true soul, you had to gather the mysterious patterns on the 9 divine cauldrons and comprehend the ancient secret technique on them. This way, you would have a motive to kill the 3 of them. Secondly, you were able to kill the 3 masters who were thousands of miles away from each other in one move within 2 hours. The murderer's cultivation was so high that it was rare in the world, and his movement was so fast that it was unparalleled in the world. You have 2 unique skills and the power of the heavenly demon. You have become the king of the devil realm, and you have passed the divine tribulation in the devil-slaying conference, so you are fully capable of doing this. Thirdly, in your previous life, Evil Moon was both good and evil, and he was unruly. In this life, you not only inherited Evil Moon's evil spirit, but also the heavenly demon's murderous intent. In addition, the way the 3 people died was extremely humiliating, which is completely in line with your style of doing things. With these 3 points, I have every reason to suspect you. Since you suspect me of being the murderer, why don't you ask me directly? Could it be that you're afraid that I'm lying? Yi Fan asked Yi Xuehan. Although I have reason to suspect that the murderer is you, I also have reason to believe that the murderer is not you. Yi Xuehan replied with a smile. What do you mean? Yi Fan asked. You do have a motive to kill the 3 of them, but if you think about it carefully, this reason doesn't seem to be valid at all. Yi Xuehan explained, with your current cultivation, you don't even need the 9 bells to completely break the divine cauldron enchantment. Moreover, you only need the patterns on the cauldron, not the inscriptions on the cauldron. And the second? Yi Fan asked. You do have the ability to kill 3 people within 2 hours, but then again, you're not the only one who can kill 3 people within 2 hours, I can as well. Yi Xuehan continued, just based on this point, I am also suspicious. Yi Fan smiled and nodded. Thirdly, although you have inherited the evil qi from your previous life and have been soaked in the endless killing intent of the sky demon, it is not difficult for me to discover from my observation that you are not a bloodthirsty person. Yi Xuehan said, the evil spirit leader of the Falling Rain village was taken in by you, and he turned over a new leaf. In this earthen city, you opened up the well, regained the sweet spring, and brought happiness to the people. These 2 things are enough to prove your character, so the expert who killed the 3 people was not you, but someone else. Actually, as long as you understand this point, you can completely prove my innocence. Yi Fan smiled and said to Yi Xuehan. What is it? Yi Xuehan asked. I did kill people, but I only killed people who deserved to die. I would never kill a good person. Just based on this point, this matter was not done by me. Yi Fan said slowly. Yi Xuehan smiled and nodded, but did not speak. Speaking of this murderer, I suddenly thought of a person. Yi Fan said with a frown. Who is it? Yi Xuehan heard Yi Fan's words and his eyes lit up. After I obtained the pattern of the divine cauldron in the heavenly lake, I met an old man whose primordial spirit had left his body on the shore. Yi Fan said to Yi Xuehan. An old man whose primordial spirit had left his body? Yi Xuehan asked. That's right. At that time, this person was wearing a golden dragon robe and a coiled dragon jade belt. He claimed to be a direct descendant of the great Song imperial family. Yi Fan said to Yi Xuehan, in order to regain the great Song empire, this person searched everywhere for the 9 cauldrons. At that time, he already knew that there was a divine cauldron under the heavenly lake, and he said that I was looking for the mysterious pattern on the cauldron. A descendant of the great Song imperial family? Yi Xuehan narrowed his eyes. This person's cultivation is not shallow. Could this be done by him? Yi Fan asked with a frown. What else did he say to you? Yi Xuehan asked Yi Fan. Back then, he wanted to cooperate with me. After I obtained the divine cauldron's pattern, I would tell him the location of the divine cauldron. If he found the divine cauldron, he would tell me the location of the divine cauldron and let me obtain the pattern. Yi Fan replied, in short, it's a mutual cooperation. I get the pattern, he wants the divine cauldron, and we both get what we need. You agreed? Yi Xuehan asked. He clearly wants to use me to break the divine cauldron barrier. How could I be fooled? Yi Fan said. This person's cultivation is extremely high, and he knows the location of the divine cauldron under the heavenly lake. It seems that the suspicion is not small. Yi Xuehan muttered to himself, it seems that I have to send someone to investigate this person's background. The Tsing-Yi Society has many experts, and all of them have superpowers. We will definitely be able to find this person. Yi Fan said. Yi Xuehan smiled and did not say anything. Mr. Yi, you didn't make such a big commotion this time just to lure me up, right? Yi Fan asked Yi Xuehan with a smile. Luring Mr. Yi up is only one of the reasons. Yi Xuehan said with a smile. What? There's a second reason? Yi Fan asked with a smile. Of course. Yi Xuehan said with a smile. Mr. Yi has opened up 5 sweet springs here. Then, I will give this 100-mile radius area a good rain to dissipate the heat here. Mr. Yi's ability is really enviable. Yi Fan said with a smile. I spent a lot of effort and only opened up a few wells. But Mr. Yi, with just a thought, the area within a 100-mile radius will be nourished by rain. I am really inferior. Mr. Yi is too kind. Yi Xuehan said. Mr. Yi has the yin and yang ultimate arts, and you have the power of frost and fire. I am the one who is inferior. Yi Fan was stunned, and then he smiled with relief. No matter what, you and I are the keepers of the bell. Regarding the murder of these 3 people, we must be careful. We must not let our guard down. Yi Xuehan said to Yi Fan, as soon as there is a lead, I will go and find Mr. Yi. There is no time to lose. I will rush back to the headquarters now and send someone to investigate the background of this descendant of the Song dynasty. Thank you, Mr. Yi. Yi Fan said to Yi Xuehan with a fist and palm salute. I will wait for your good news. Chapter 792. After Yi Xuehan left, Yi Fan unleashed his movement technique and passed through the clouds before descending toward the earthen city below. Inside the earthen building, Akatsuki, who was wearing a crystal mask, was anxiously guarding the window as she looked up at the clouds above with an anxious expression. Yi Fan had already been in the clouds for a while, and she didn't know how he was doing now. His opponent was clearly a top-notch super-powerful being, and if Yi Fan were to engage in a battle with him, it was still unknown whether he would win or lose. Meanwhile, the woman with the surname Dong was the exact opposite of Akatsuki. Her eyes were wide with excitement as she looked at the torrential rain outside with an indescribable sense of elation in her heart. It hadn't rained here for several months, so after this heavy rain, the dried-up river would be filled with clean water, and the cracked earth would be moist and fertile again. Thus, the people in the city would be able to plant crops and grapes again. Whoosh! Just as the two women were rejoicing, Yi Fan's figure appeared out of thin air within the earthen building. "I'm back," Yi Fan said as he sat down on a chair beside the table. "Bufon Kun." Akatsuki immediately turned around upon hearing Yi Fan's voice. "Mr. Yi is back." The woman with the surname Dong also immediately greeted Yi Fan. She had already become completely accustomed to Yi Fan's elusive movement technique. Yi Fan nodded politely at the woman with the surname Dong. "Please wait here, I'll go brew a pot of tea for you," the woman said as she quickly made her way downstairs. She was no longer short of water, so of course she had to treat Yi Fan with the best tea. "What, are you worried about me?" Yi Fan leaned back in his chair as he asked Akatsuki with a smile. "I'm not worried about you." Akatsuki pursed her lips under the mask. Yi Fan smiled and didn't say anything. "How did it go? Did you find the divine cauldron?" Akatsuki sat on the chair beside Yi Fan and asked with concern. "I found it." Yi Fan nodded. "That's great." Hearing Yi Fan say that he had found the divine cauldron, Akatsuki said happily. "It went very smoothly this time. I did a lot of things." Yi Fan said as he roughly told Akatsuki how he used the fire kirin to enter the spirit flame mountain to obtain the divine cauldron patterns, how he helped the scorpion essence to remove the poison, and how he obtained the Yazi divine scabbard and phoenix wing blade. Yu Hongji was dumbfounded as she listened with great interest. She was shocked by the power of the spirit flame mountain's flames, the miraculous abilities of the fire qilin, and even more shocked by the combination of the Yazi sword scabbard and the frost dragon sword. "Oh right, what did you find after you flew up to the clouds? Why did you take so long to come down?" Akatsuki asked Yi Fan. "It's a long story." Yi Fan stopped smiling and told Akatsuki about meeting Yi Shuehan. Of course, he did not tell Akatsuki about Jiuling, because this matter involved the secrets of heaven. If Akatsuki knew about this, it would not be good for anyone. He only told Akatsuki that the three people who were killed knew about the clues to the three divine cauldrons, which was why they were killed. Could the murderer really be a descendant of the great Song imperial family? Akatsuki asked with a frown. "It's possible, but it's not absolute." Yi Fan said, "The world is so big, and there are many experts who are hiding their strength. Whether or not this was done by that old man is still unknown. Before he finds out the real culprit, you must be careful. You must not let your guard down." Akatsuki said worriedly to Yi Fan. "He might come looking for you." Yi Fan had already obtained the patterns of the 6 divine cauldrons and knew the exact location of the 6 divine cauldrons. Once the murderer knew about this, he would definitely come looking for him. "Don't worry, I know what to do," Yi Fan replied. Actually, Yi Fan did not take this matter seriously on the surface, but in reality, he was very nervous. One had to know that he had 2 bells on him, the green bell that Xiao Zhao was guarding and the white bell that he was guarding. Since the murderer had a way to find out that the 3 of them were the bellkeepers, then it was only a matter of time before he found out the identities of himself and Xiao Zhao. From now on, he had to be extremely vigilant and protect the safety of Xiao Zhao and the 2 bells with all his might. Now that the matter is done, when the rain stops, we will immediately return to the East Sea. Akatsuki said to Yi Fan. "This place has already been dry for a few months. Ishuahin's reign will definitely continue for a while." Yi Fan said to Akatsuki, "We won't wait any longer. Let's return to the East Sea now." As Yi Fan spoke, he took out a stack of gold leaves from his bosom and placed a few on the table. However, after a brief hesitation, he placed the remaining stack of gold leaves on the table. This woman was far away from her hometown, and she was an orphan and a widow. Her life was not easy. This stack of gold leaves was worth nearly 1,000 taels of silver. It was enough for the mother and son to eat and wear for the rest of their lives. Leave now? In this kind of weather? Akatsuki asked Yi Fan in surprise. This kind of weather doesn't affect the ability to ride the cloud, and you can hide your whereabouts. It's the most suitable weather for traveling. Yi Fan looked at Akatsuki and said, Moreover, you should get used to this kind of weather. When you learn how to ride the cloud in the future, no matter what kind of weather, you will still be able to come and go freely, rain or shine. After hearing Yi Fan's words, Akatsuki, who was under the mask, bit her lip lightly and did not speak. She stood up from the chair, silently put the sword behind her back, and picked up Baihu. Let's go. As Yi Fan spoke, he came to Akatsuki's side and gently patted Akatsuki's shoulder. At the same time, he activated his spiritual power and used his body movement technique. Whoosh! The two figures instantly disappeared into thin air. Mr. Yi, miss you, try my hometown tea and see if it suits your taste. As the woman spoke, she carried the tea tray upstairs. However, when she saw the empty living room and the stack of golden leaves on the table, the smile on the woman's face disappeared. She hurriedly put down the tea tray and rushed to the window. Reaching out, she opened the window and looked up at the sky. She saw that in the sky filled with lightning, thunder, and torrential rain, there was a translucent ball of light, braving the wind and rain, going against the wind at high speed. Within the ball of light were Yi Fan and Akatsuki. Compassionate Guanyin Bodhisattva, please bless these two benefactors to be safe and sound, to live a long life, to turn misfortune into luck, and to turn misfortune into prosperity. The woman closed her eyes tightly, put her palms together, and murmured to herself, completely ignoring the wind and rain outside the window and drenching her clothes. Whoosh! The water-repelling ball of light that enveloped the two people and the fox instantly broke through the dark clouds, filled with lightning and thunder, and arrived above the clouds filled with sunlight. Whoosh! After breaking through the clouds, the water-repelling ball of light turned into specks of light and dissipated. Whoosh! After the water-repelling ball of light dissipated, Yi Fan waved his sleeves, and the snow-white auspicious clouds quickly condensed under his feet, firmly supporting the two of them. Your spiritual energy cultivation has now reached a small success. When you go back, you can freely cultivate your spiritual energy. Yi Fan turned to look at Akatsuki and said, with your aptitude, I think it will only take a few months for you to be able to fly in the air. Akatsuki nodded. It's already past noon, do you want to go eat something? Yi Fan asked Akatsuki. I'm not hungry. Akatsuki shook her head and said, after arriving in the western region, you've been wearing the crystal mask and haven't eaten a single drop of water. Aren't you hungry? Yi Fan asked. I didn't do anything, nor did I help you. How can I be hungry? Akatsuki said. You're not hungry, but Xiao Zhao and I are. Yi Fan turned his head and said, when we reach the eastern sea, make us something to eat. You're lying to me. Akatsuki said calmly. Lying to you? Why would I lie to you? Yi Fan was stunned and asked Akatsuki. Did you forget? During the demon-slaying conference, you ate the fiery sun jujube given to you by the mountain god. You won't be hungry for half a year. Akatsuki looked at Yi Fan and replied. I'm craving it. Is that okay? Yi Fan was choked by Yu Hongji's words and almost didn't know how to reply. Are you afraid that after we separate in the future, you won't be able to eat the food I make? Akatsuki asked faintly. This. Yi Fan didn't know how to answer. Akatsuki was extremely intelligent and immediately guessed his thoughts. Tell me, am I right? Akatsuki turned her head and reached out to take off the crystal mask. Her eyes were red as she asked Yi Fan. Yes. Looking at the lovely Akatsuki, Yi Fan lowered his head and squeezed out a word. Okay, I'll make it for you. Akatsuki looked up and blinked, not letting her tears fall. Yi Fan's words made her feel a trace of relief in addition to sadness. This man still had feelings for her, even if he didn't say it. Since he wanted to eat the food she made, then in the remaining time, she would do her best to take care of his food and shelter. This way, even if they separated in the future, when he ate, he would think of her. Baihu Xiao Zhao was quietly lying in Akatsuki's arms. Looking forward, its clear eyes gently blinked and its gaze was deep. Even though it was a fox and couldn't speak, it was clearer than anyone else about the feelings between Akatsuki and Yi Fan. The two people and one fox each had their own thoughts as they remained silent. After half an hour, Yi Fan's auspicious clouds arrived above the eastern sea. At this time, the eastern sea was calm and sparkling. The sun shined on the surface of the sea, making it sparkle. Several seagulls were chasing each other on the surface of the sea, letting out cheerful cries. We're here. Yi Fan broke the silence and said, Akatsuki put the crystal mask back on her face and softly replied. Yi Fan controlled the auspicious clouds and slowly descended to the deck of the warship. Hongji! Hongji! On the deck of the warship, a tall man wearing a red robe waved at Akatsuki in the air while excitedly shouting Akatsuki's name. Senior! Sun Yao! Looking at the tall man below, Akatsuki was stunned at first, then she said to herself in surprise. This man was none other than the last disciple of her second martial uncle, Yamamoto Sun Yao, who was engaged to her. Chapter 793. After a while, Yi Fan slowly landed the auspicious clouds on the deck of the battleship. Hongji! Before the clouds dispersed, the tall man hugged Yu Hongji, who was wearing a mask and staring at him with a dumbfounded expression on her face. Yi Fan frowned and looked at the tall man who was engaged to Akatsuki. Not only was this person tall, but he was also very handsome. He had sword-like eyebrows, an aquiline nose, starry eyes, and white teeth. His face was angular, and his temperament was heroic. His black hair fluttered behind him, and he had a dark green saber at his waist. Like Akatsuki, he was also wearing a red robe. Under the slight sea breeze, the red robe fluttered like a ball of fire. For some reason, when he saw this man hugging Akatsuki tightly in his arms, Yi Fan's fists clenched uncontrollably. Qian Yaokun, you? Why are you here? Akatsuki, who was tightly hugged in his arms, stared with wide eyes. She was at a loss and stuttered in Japanese. I miss you, so I specially asked Master to come to the great Ming dynasty to help Mr. Matsumoto. This way, I can see you every day and won't have to worry about you every day. The tall man said and hugged Akatsuki even tighter. You! Let go of me first. Akatsuki pushed the man away and said anxiously. As she spoke, she unconsciously looked back at Yi Fan. Yi Fan was expressionless. His face was ashen as he stared coldly at the tall man. Under the mask, Akatsuki bit her lower lip and immediately looked away. Qian Yaokun, let me introduce you. This is my mission partner, Yi Bufan, Mr. Yi. Akatsuki introduced Yi Fan to the tall man. I've heard a lot about Mr. Yi. I'm Yamamoto Chio, Hongji's fiancé. Please advise me. Yamamoto Chio nodded politely to Yi Fan and introduced himself in fluent Chinese. After hearing the word fiancé, Yi Fan's heart suddenly hurt as if it was pierced by a needle. Bufan-kun, this is my second uncle Koizumi Yuji's last disciple, Yamamoto Chio. Akatsuki introduced Yamamoto Chio to Yi Fan. Yamamoto Chio frowned and looked at Akatsuki. She didn't say he was her fiancé. Yi Bufan, Yi Fan said to Yamamoto Chio, please advise me. I heard from Mr. Matsumoto that Mr. Yi has repeatedly saved Hongji from danger. Yamamoto is very grateful. Thank you Mr. Yi for saving my fiancé. Yamamoto Chiyo bowed to Yi Fan and said solemnly, "You're welcome." Yi Fan replied, "Hongji saved my life before. If it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be standing here right now." Yi Fan said and turned to look at Akatsuki. Akatsuki looked down and didn't speak. Looking at the expressions of the two, Yamamoto Chiyo vaguely felt that the relationship between the two was a bit unusual. But as for what exactly was wrong, he couldn't pinpoint it. "I'm a little tired. I'll go back to the cabin to rest. You haven't seen each other for a long time. You must have a lot to talk about. I won't disturb the two of you. Goodbye." Yi Fan said expressionlessly while taking Baihu from Akatsuki's hand. Then, he tapped the deck with the tip of his foot and flew toward the boat. Looking at Yi Fan's figure flying away, Akatsuki felt a trace of pain in her heart. "Hongji, I miss you so much." After Yi Fan left, Yamamoto Chiyo held Akatsuki's hand and said softly, "Although Master has promised to betroth me to you, I'm not your wife yet. Please don't be like this." Akatsuki withdrew her hand from Yamamoto Chiyo's hand and said coldly, "Hongji, you." Yamamoto Chiyo saw that Akatsuki was cold to him, and his eagle-like eyes immediately wrinkled. "I told you when I was in Japan that you were indeed very good to me, but I don't like you." Akatsuki said to Yamamoto Chiyo, "Although Master has agreed to this marriage, no one can force me when it comes to feelings. But Hongji, I'm sincere to you." Yamamoto Chiyo anxiously said to Akatsuki, "Chiyo, I'm tired. I want to rest for a while. Is that okay?" Akatsuki interrupted Yamamoto Chiyo and said. Yamamoto Chiyo took a deep breath and slowly nodded. Akatsuki walked around Yamamoto Chiyo and walked toward her cabin. In the cabin of the boat, Yi Fan was lying naked in a steaming wooden bathtub. His arms were draped outside, and he held a wine jug in his hand. From time to time, he would take a big gulp. On the square cabinet beside the bathtub, there were more than a dozen empty wine jugs strewn all over the place. Baihu lay on the table at the side and looked at Yi Fan with heartache. But this time, it didn't stop Yi Fan from drinking. With Yi Fan's current cultivation, no matter how much he drank, it wouldn't hurt him. Since he wanted to get drunk, let him get drunk. Perhaps he would feel better after getting drunk. The white fox thought to itself. It would always think from Yi Fan's perspective. Knock, knock, knock. Just as Yi Fan was drowning his sorrows in alcohol, there was a knock on the door. "Who is it?" Yi Fan, who reeked of alcohol, asked impatiently. He was so annoyed that he didn't have the mood to care about who was outside. "Mr. Yi, it's me, Ishii." Ishii's respectful voice came from outside the door. "What's the matter?" Yi Fan asked with a frown as he leaned against the wooden tub with his eyes closed. "Miss, you prepared some food and wine and asked me to deliver it to you," Ishii replied. "Leave it at the door," Yi Fan said as he opened his eyes. "Yes," Ishii replied. "By the way, I've finished all the wine here. Prepare some for me," Yi Fan instructed Ishii. "The more the better." "What wine would you like to drink, sir? Japanese sake? Red wine from the Central Plains? Or grape wine from the Western regions?" Ishii asked Yi Fan. "Prepare whatever wine is the strongest." Yi Fan tilted his head back and gulped down a few mouthfuls of wine as he spoke. "Yes, I'll do it right away," Ishii said as he placed the food box at the door and turned to leave. In a short while, the sound of Ishii's footsteps and the muffled sound of wine jars falling to the ground came from outside the door. "Mr. Yi, I've brought you 10 jars of wine," Ishii replied from outside the door. "Purple gold wine, bamboo green wine, Shaoxing yellow, sake, and sodaozi. 2 jars of each of the 5 types of wine. They're all top-grade spirit." "Okay," Yi Fan nodded and said, "Thank you for your hard work. You may go." "Yes." Ishii turned and left. Splash! Yi Fan stood up from the bathtub and reached out to pull off a white towel to wrap around his waist. Then, he stepped out of the bathtub and went downstairs barefooted. Whoosh! When he reached the door, the drunk Yi Fan reached out to slide open the cabin door. On the deck outside the cabin door were 10 jars of good wine and a food box. Yi Fan picked up the food box and opened the lid. There were 6 dishes, 3 meat and 3 vegetable dishes, all of which were Yi Fan's favorite. Apart from that, there were also 2 plates of exquisite pastries prepared for Baihu. Yi Fan closed the lid of the food box again, and then gently brushed the 10 jars of good wine on the ground. Whoosh! The 10 jars of strong wine immediately floated up when Yi Fan brushed them. Yi Fan carried the food box and turned to go upstairs. The 10 jars of wine seemed to have a mind of their own. They floated behind Yi Fan and entered the cabin. Splash! The cabin door closed automatically. On the warship, Akatsuki stood in front of the cabin window. Her eyes were red as she watched the drunk Yi Fan move the wine into the cabin. He was drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Akatsuki thought to herself as she wiped her tears. After returning to the cabin, Yi Fan first fed Baihu the pastries in the food box. Then, he placed the 6 dishes, 3 meat and 3 vegetable dishes, on the table. He picked up a jar of wine, smashed the mud seal, filled the empty bowl on the table, and began to drink by himself. The dishes were good, and the wine was good, but Yi Fan felt that the taste was like chewing wax. When he thought of the scene where Chiyao Yamamoto hugged Akatsuki in his arms and called her his fiancée, Yi Fan's anger surged up. He wanted to get angry, but he didn't know who to vent his anger on. Should he look for Akatsuki? She was kind to him, but he pretended to be stupid and didn't appreciate it. How could he blame her? Chiyao Yamamoto? That won't do. Although he wanted to beat this guy, he still didn't have any reason to do so. He was right. Akatsuki was his fiancée. Hugging his fiancée was not too much, right? The more Yi Fan thought about it, the more annoyed he became. He picked up the big bowl and drank the wine. He couldn't do anything now except drowning his sorrows in alcohol. Knock, knock, knock. There was a knock on the door. Who is it? Yi Fan put down the wine bowl and asked impatiently in a loud voice. Usually, this ship was quiet and no one came. How come today he couldn't even drink in peace? Brother Yi, it's me. Chi Yao's voice came from outside the door. Yi Fan frowned after listening. Brush Chi Yao in a black robe appeared out of thin air in the berth cabin. When he saw Yi Fan only had a bath towel wrapped around his waist, Chi Yao was surprised at first, and then smiled. Brother Yi really knows how to enjoy life. Don't you feel bored drinking alone with good wine and good food? Why didn't that beauty called Akatsuki accompany you? Could it be that you had a quarrel? Chi Yao said with a smile. He shook his black robe and sat in the empty seat opposite Yi Fan. Don't you think you talk too much nonsense? Yi Fan looked up at Chi Yao, picked up the wine jar and filled the bowl. Chi Yao smiled after hearing this. What do you want from me? If you have something to say it quickly. Yi Fan put down the wine jar and said to Chi Yao impatiently. I have an important news to tell you. You should be interested. Chi Yao said while reaching for an empty bowl on the table. He then picked up the wine jar and filled the bowl full of wine. What news? Yi Fan looked up and asked. Matsumoto Takeyoshi and that Yamamoto Shingo quietly went out for a few days. Chi Yao put down the wine jar and said to Yi Fan. Went out for a few days? Where did they go? Yi Fan asked Chi Yao. Chi Yao shook his head. This is the important news you want to tell me? Yi Fan coldly snorted and asked Chi Yao. It's normal for them to go out. Wait until you hear what I'm going to say. You won't think so, Chi Yao said with a smile. What do you mean? Yi Fan asked with a frown. When Matsumoto Takeyoshi and Yamamoto Shingo went out, I wasn't on the warship. But when I came back, I found some clues. Chi Yao lowered his voice and said to Yi Fan. What clues? Yi Fan asked. Matsumoto Takeyoshi and Yamamoto Shingo in the warship's hold were impersonated. Chi Yao said and picked up the wine bowl to drink. Chapter 794. A disguise. Yi Fan frowned and asked Qi Yao, who was it? The man in blue disguised himself as Matsumoto Takeyoshi, and the Chinkong Iha disguised himself as the man in white. Qi Yao put down the wine bowl and said, Are you sure? Yi Fan raised his eyebrows and asked Qi Yao. Their disguises are indeed superb, but they can fool others, but they can't fool me, Qi Yao said with a smile. My yin-yang dual-life technique has reached a certain level, such a small trick can't escape my eyes. Yi Fan frowned and nodded slowly. He knew Qi Yao's ability. When it came to evil, crooked, and deceitful methods, if he claimed to be second, no one would dare to claim to be first. In that case, this matter is really a bit strange. Yi Fan nodded slowly. He must have something very important to do for him to be so secretive. Qi Yao filled his cup again and continued, and what's interesting is that at that time, you were sent to Shandong Tian by him. You mean, he deliberately sent me away? Yi Fan asked Qi Yao. It's possible, Qi Yao nodded and said. Among all the masters on the ship, you are the one he is most wary of. Only by giving you a task and having you leave in advance, he will leave with peace of mind. Otherwise, his traces will be discovered by you. So I suspect that his main purpose is to guard against you. When did they come back? Yi Fan asked Qi Yao. Yesterday. Qi Yao took a sip of wine and said, When I went to see them yesterday, the one in the cabin was already the venerable one. Yi Fan nodded. Matsumoto Takeyoshi's departure time was exactly the same as his departure time. It was indeed very suspicious. What do you think? Is my information valuable? Qi Yao smiled and asked Yi Fan while drinking. What about you? Yi Fan changed the topic and asked Qi Yao, What task did you go out to perform this time? Me? Humph. Qi Yao sneered and put down the wine bowl. Matsumoto Takeyoshi is not only guarding against you, but also against me. On the day you went out, he also arranged a job for me, a F*King dirty job. What kind of dirty job? Yi Fan asked. What kind of dirty job could it be? Qi Yao smiled. Kill people? Yi Fan frowned and asked, Who do you want to kill? Last time, I fought with several forces for a piece of meteorite iron and killed a few experts. Qi Yao smiled and said, Those forces were a little angry and hired 18 experts to form an assassin group. They divided into 3 groups to assassinate Matsumoto Takeyoshi. Who would have thought that Matsumoto Takeyoshi was so resourceful that he knew about this in advance and arranged for me to kill the 3 groups of assassins? F***ck I went to 3 places, and the time it took to travel was longer than the time it took to kill them. What about them? You killed them all? Yi Fan asked. Not only did I kill these assassins, but I also killed the leaders behind them. I directly gave them a warning. Otherwise, this matter would not be over. Wave after wave, it would be like poking a hornet's nest. Qi Yao smiled and said. You're really quick to cut the Gordian knot, Yi Fan said as he drank. If you want to cut the grass, you have to remove the roots. Otherwise, it would be too troublesome. Qi Yao smiled indifferently and said, If those guys make trouble again, I'll kill them all. Don't blame me for being ruthless. You don't say. Your wine here is really good. Qi Yao picked up the wine jar again and filled the wine bowl. If you like it, you can take 2 jars back to drink later, Yi Fan said with a smile. Although Qi Yao was greedy and lecherous, he was a straightforward person. Yi Fan appreciated this very much. Now, when he looked at problems, he was no longer as serious as before. Everything had to be divided into good and evil, right and wrong, right and wrong. In fact, there was no right or wrong. It was just that he looked at the problem from a different perspective. Thank you, Brother Yi, Qi Yao said with a smile. Knock, knock, knock. There was another knock on the door. Yi Fan smiled bitterly. He wondered what day it was today for it to be so lively. Mr. Yi, Mr. Qi Yao, Mr. Matsumoto will be hosting a banquet tonight. Please don't go out for the time being. Ishii's voice came from outside. Got it, Yi Fan said. Ishii turned around and left. This kid is pretty good. He actually knew I was here, Chi Yao said with a smile as he drank. Why? Are you interested in men too? Yi Fan asked Chi Yao with a smile as he drank. Ha ha ha! Chi Yao threw his head back and laughed. Soon, it was night time. At this moment, above Yi Kong, the stars were as bright as a sea of stars. A gentle breeze blew on the surface of the sea, and the sound of waves could be heard. On both sides of the warship's hull, there were more than 10 exquisite wooden tables neatly arranged. The wooden tables were about 3 feet long. The sides were slightly tilted, and the design was simple and unadorned. On top of them there were all kinds of dishes and wine. Sashimi, oysters, scallops, lobster sashimi, caviar, fish bone soup, exquisite sushi, mellow sake, and all kinds of Japanese delicacies. With the rich East Sea, there was no need to worry about ingredients. At this moment, there were already many experts sitting around the wooden tables. The blue-clothed man, Sato Kawaki, and the green-eyed boy, one of the 5 boys of Japan, had their heads together and were whispering to each other. Occasionally, they would let out an evil laugh. Mizuki Taraiga was holding a teacup and quietly drinking tea. Funakoshi Shinichi had his eyes lowered as if he was thinking about something. Onaji Karo and Yagi Long Kiyoshi had their eyes slightly closed as if they were resting. The rest of them were either quietly drinking tea, meditating with their eyes closed, or whispering to each other. Akatsuki, whose face was covered by a veil, and Chiyao Yamamoto, who was also wearing a red robe, sat next to each other. Akatsuki was silent. Chiyao Yamamoto frowned. At this moment, apart from Yi Fan and Chiyao, everyone who should be here was here. Whoosh! At this moment, Yi Fan, who was wearing an 8-treasure robe, and Chiyao, who was also wearing a black robe, appeared out of thin air outside the door. The two of them had their arms around each other's shoulders as they staggered in. They had been drinking for the entire afternoon. Both of them reeked of alcohol and were extremely drunk. What was worse was that both of them were carrying a huge wine jar in their hands. Come, 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 brother Yi. Let's drink, Yi. Chi-Yao, who was hugging Yi Fan's shoulder, said to Yi Fan while laughing. Brother Yao, let's sit down and drink. Sit down and drink. Yi Fan, whose face was flushed red from drinking, said drunkenly while pointing at the 2 empty seats in front of him, while holding on to Chi Yao's neck with one hand and the wine jar in the other. Okay. Okay. Chi Yao said while burping and laughing. Sit down and drink. As the two of them spoke, their bodies swayed as they walked forward. Seeing that the two of them were drunk, everyone looked at them in surprise. They had heard that there was a lot of resentment between the two of them. Why did the sun rise from the west today? Why were the two of them drinking so happily? Seeing this, Akatsuki's heart suddenly ached. Yi Fan was actually hanging out with Chi Yao, who had always had a grudge against him. It could be seen how uncomfortable his heart was. Bufan-kun, why did you drink so much? Akatsuki said as she stood up and walked quickly to Yi Fan's side. She reached out to help Yi Fan. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Yi Fan, who reeked of alcohol, turned his head to look at Akatsuki and said drunkenly. He freed his arm from Akatsuki's hand and continued to laugh as he staggered forward with Chi Yao. Bufan-kun, you're drunk. Akatsuki once again supported Yi Fan. Yi Fan stopped and slowly turned his head to look at Akatsuki. His eyes were terrifyingly cold. Let go. Yi Fan said to Akatsuki. Yi Fan's cold eyes made Akatsuki's heart suddenly thump. She stood there in a daze, not knowing what to do. I told you to let go, did you hear me? Yi Fan tilted his head and stared at Akatsuki. He said again. At this moment, the bustling hall instantly became silent. Everyone didn't understand what was wrong with Yi Fan, nor did they understand what had happened between him and Akatsuki. In the past, Yi Fan had directly offended Matsumoto Takeyoshi for Akatsuki. He didn't give him any face and didn't hesitate to use a large amount of spiritual energy to forcibly revive Akatsuki, who was already dead and buried in the grave. They had also heard about the incident in Yangzhou. Anyone who had seen Akatsuki's true appearance had either been killed or had their eyes removed. No one had a good ending. It could be said that Yi Fan loved and cared for Yu Hongji very much. Although the experts didn't know if the two of them had already developed feelings for each other, they didn't dare to doubt the friendship between the two of them. But today's scene left all the experts puzzled no matter how they thought about it. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed it even if they were beaten to death. Even Onijiro and Bamu Chongqing felt that the scene in front of them was somewhat inconceivable. But, seeing that Akatsuki was stunned on the spot, Yi Fan suddenly pulled his arm out of Akatsuki's hand and staggered forward with Chi Yao. Akatsuki stood there in a daze as if she was in a dream. Crack! Chi Yao Yamamoto, who was sitting on the side, clenched his fists. If this wasn't a banquet set up by Matsumoto Takeyoshi, he would definitely not forgive Yi Fan's arrogance and rudeness. At this time, Yi Fan had a presumptuous smile on his face. He called Chi Yao brother, but his heart felt like it was pierced by thousands of arrows. Her fiancé had already come to the door. If he continued to be entangled with Akatsuki, there would be a big problem. Taking advantage of Chi Yao Yamamoto's visit to Donghai, he wanted to completely break Akatsuki's heart and let her completely give up on him. He had to do this now and could only do this. After a long time, Akatsuki slowly returned to her seat. Her eyes were blank and lifeless. Yi Fan and Chi Yao also sat in their respective seat. The two of them raised their wine jars and clinked them together. Then, they started drinking as if there was no one around. Hongji, are you alright? Chi Yao Yamamoto asked Akatsuki, who had returned to her seat with a concerned expression. I'm fine. Akatsuki lowered her gaze and said. Ignore that lunatic. I gave him face, but he didn't want it. Chi Yao Yamamoto turned his head and stared at Yi Fan as he said hatefully. Chi Yao-kun, let's get married after we return to Dongying. Akatsuki said lightly. Chi Yao Yamamoto was shocked and dumbfounded. Crack! Akatsuki's words clearly reached Yi Fan's ears. The wine jar in his hand was instantly cracked by him. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.